assigned seats. There are 2 tables up here in the front. Don't be shy. Please make your way up here. That means you're going to be the A+ student for the day if you come and sit at these 2 front tables. So welcome. My name is Tracy Kalunga, and I serve as the Innovation Team Director here for the City of Long Beach, and we're so excited to have you here with us today. The City of Long Beach is a national leader in civic, social, and government innovation. The Civic Innovation Summit today is going to highlight current innovation efforts amongst different sectors. We are bringing together skilled leaders, actors, all of us working towards urban solutions to improve the lives of residents here in the city. Everyone from designers to entrepreneurs, government representatives, policymakers, activists, we're all here to celebrate the outstanding efforts in the use of open data, local government support, and the user-centered design process. We have a fun day planned for you. We have speakers, we have Legos, so open those boxes. There's a bunch of Legos inside. We want you to build and have fun. We have yummy food, and we have an interactive workshop. So we really want you to sit back and enjoy yourself today and have fun as we talk about all the different innovation happening in our city. The summit today is part of Long Beach Innovation Month, otherwise known as Innovate LB. There are a dozen events going on all around Long Beach this month to really highlight the innovation, diversity, and creativity that's happening here in our city. We encourage you to go on longbeach.gov/iTeam or Innovate LB. You can go on either website and learn about all the great things happening in our city. Also, Long Beach Innovation Month is part of a larger countywide effort called Innovate LA. It's a 2-week countywide celebration where there's an expression of the potential in Los Angeles. It's a place where innovation goes beyond science and technology, and we're joining the LA County efforts as they celebrate from November 2nd to November 19th. We have a few county representatives here from LAEDC, and we're so proud to have them co-sponsor this event with us today. Lastly, we want to make sure if you post pictures on social media, you can see the hashtags up on the screens, hashtag Civic Summit LB, Innovate LB, and ILA 2017. Make sure you plug those into your social media accounts so that we can see all the wonderful things that are happening throughout the day. So again, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed your breakfast. We're so excited to kick off the summit this morning with our keynote speaker, Dan Hart. And it's going to take me a minute. You have a great bio, by the way. So I'm gonna read through his bio, but some of the work that he's been doing is really, again, creative and innovative in a world outside of our own. To hear what they've been working on as the president of Virgin Orbit. He leads Virgin's satellite launch company. The company's primary focus is delivery of small satellites and constellations to LEO, orbit around the Virgin's Launcher 1 rocket, which is air-launched from Virgin Orbit 747 named Cosmic Girl. Prior to this, Hart was the Vice President of Government Satellite Systems for Boeing Space and Intelligent Systems Division. In this position, he was responsible for all Boeing satellite programs for the USG and allied countries, including the Wideband Global Satcom, Global Positioning System, tracking and data relay satellites, payload programs, experimental systems group, and other government satellite programs. He was named to this position in December of 2013. Hart has held a wide variety of leadership roles in program management, engineering, and operations across Boeing's network and space systems unit. He has led teams in all phases of the product life cycle, from R&D through development, production, and flight operations, and has supported numerous space launch missions across manned space, satellite development, launch vehicle development, and missile defense. Prior to his current assignment, Dan served as the Vice President and Chief Engineer for Boeing Network and Space Systems. He was responsible for providing functional oversight for all engineering, technology development, and mission assurance activities for the 10,000 NNSSS engineers. It is my pleasure to welcome our keynote speaker, Dan Hart, President and CEO of Virgin Orbit.
Well, it's great to be here, everybody. It is terrific to be here in Long Beach. I've been a Long Beach resident for almost 30 years. It's great to be running a business here in the hometown. I'm going to, let's see, does this work? There we go. I'm going to be talking to you about our satellite launch system. It's an air launch system that comes off of a 747, who has a name of Cosmic Girl, which, by the way, we didn't name. It was her name when she was first commissioned, so it's sort of a interesting coincidence there. I want to talk a little bit about why we're here in Long Beach first. Virgin Orbit, which is one of the newest companies under Richard Branson's Virgin Group, which has a couple of hundred companies under it. And by the way, I spoke to Richard last night, and he says hi to everybody. Virgin Orbit looked around all over the place, was originally up in Pasadena, had a leg up in Mojave, and looked around the area for a place to be. And Long Beach really came out on top, and primarily because it's so centrally located. It's got such a great aerospace history, and the talent around of people who really made aerospace happen, dating back all the way, frankly, to World War II, and then up through the 60s and the space race, and up through the 70s and 80s and commercial space in the 90s. Really has such a great history and a great amount of talent pool that's here, and the universities in the area all really work well in the technology area. So it's sort of a nice ecosystem for a technology-based company to be. And so that's why we're here. I feel fantastic about being here in that I've spent most of my career in large compounds that are sometimes feel isolated from the community, and it's great to be part of the community. So let me talk to you a little bit about what we're up to. Our job is to get satellites a ride into orbit. And we have a novel, innovative approach to do that. We fly up on a 747 under the wing, and the rocket gets on location, drops down. About 5 seconds later, the engines ignite and takes the payload up to orbit. It's an interesting time to be in this business in that space is changing, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But the ability to put incredible capability in small packages has hit space. We all feel it in our iPhones and our smartphones. You know, everybody's been affected by the revolution in electronics and capabilities, and that's hitting satellites too. So satellites that used to maybe be the size of a small school bus, now you can put that functionality in something the size of a washing machine or a small refrigerator, or maybe a toaster oven, and any other appliance. So that's changing the way we think about space. Now, I'm going to go through a few charts with you now. You know, we spend a lot of time thinking about, and Richard really drives this into each of his businesses, of what effect do you want to have on the world? What's your purpose? What would the world look like? What's the difference between the world with your existence versus without your existence? And in our minds, that's where innovation has to start, with a strong purpose that drives a team together. So let me take you through space a little bit through the years. We've been functioning in space for about 55 years now. If you look at commercially what's happened in space, in 1964, the Tokyo Olympics was broadcast across the world by a little satellite called SYNCOM-2, which, by the way, was built up in El Segundo, and that changed the way we think about communications. And since then, through the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, an enormous array of communication networks have been put up in space. A lot of them are regionally based, but they do connect across the world, and we use them routinely when we pull out our cell phones, when we use credit cards, when we get any data on the website. Routinely, we're using these satellites. In addition, satellites have, of course, changed the way we navigate. Most of us, if you're like me, don't know where we're going unless we're looking at this little screen that's telling us to turn right or left. And that's being brought to us by GPS satellites, for the most part, that are up there at about 11,000 miles. Additionally, we're using satellites to understand things like crop health, fertilization, industry density, sales in various areas. We're using it to certainly understand our planet and global warming or not, and pollution and ozone and rising of the seas. We're using it to understand severe storms and get ready and for preparation, as well as for communication systems that allow us to do emergency response and communications. We're using it in the military to understand where our adversaries are and where they're not. And so space has really grown hugely, but there's a problem. Just like the economies have grown everywhere else, it's uneven. And what space is doing now is, in some ways, it's amplifying the differences or the inequities that exist in the world. Okay, so the companies that put up bandwidth historically will put it up over the cities or the populations that have the most money to pay for it. And so you end up with things like the digital divide, where poor areas don't have enough bandwidth. And if you look at how applications have grown, you know, to really function, you need bandwidth. You want the video to come. The expectation is, you know, now it's video, soon it'll be virtual reality. And today, that's not where the bandwidth is unevenly located. Okay, it's more in the rich areas, and that will have the effect of amplifying the advantage. So, what we're seeing also is there are a limited number of countries with launch capability. There's about 9 countries. There are also only about 4 to 6 large companies that do really big constellations of satellites and handle most of the communications. So a really small group have control over space. And then the other aspects is politically, when we talk about earth science and other science and programs, political decisions have a huge impact on what we do in space. And you know, you hear that echoed, and wherever you are in the political spectrum, one set of years it may be serving your needs, and another set maybe not. So, you know, what we see is a need to break down those barriers, and that's where our system comes in. Because there's this incredible innovation going on in the space world, where satellites can now be built very inexpensively. I mean, when I was working in space in the 90s, it would be maybe a $400 million, $500 million proposition to build a satellite and get it launched into orbit. And so you can imagine there were very, very few organizations that were willing to put up the money and take the risk and get some capability into space. Well, you know, what if that was divided by a factor of 20? And that's where we are today. So you can put together a satellite probably for a handful of millions of dollars, and with our system, you can get it up to orbit for another small number of millions of dollars, and you can have capability in orbit. What that does is it changes the game completely. So now organizations, entrepreneurs, countries, universities can band together and put up capability that years ago they never would have thought they'd get anywhere near. And that's changing the whole population of who can go to space. So our job is in Virgin Orbit is a concierge service for those small satellites. Right now, the satellites have been developed, but they still have to hitch rides on very big rockets, which go where and when the big satellite is ready to go. And so they can get a ride on a ride to space station, for instance, but then they're in a space station orbit, and if that's not their business plan, or if it's delayed or whatever, you know, they get impacted. So what we've done is we've built a rocket that can put up 300 kilograms to low Earth orbit for this hugely growing sector of the market that's going to change how space is done. And so what we're after is, let's see if this works. Well, here's our system again, and I'll talk about it a little bit more. So small satellites, custom-built rocket, changes the way we do space. You've seen that space, and we're all feeling what space does for all of us here, but our idea is put up more capability to change the way to improve life on Earth. And so whereas some of the other entrepreneurs in space are looking towards going to Mars or going to outer planets or going off of this beautiful planet that we have, the theme that we have, or the purpose that we have at Virgin Orbit, is how do we get capability in space that improves life here on Earth? Because it's the best neighborhood that we've found, frankly. So what we are looking to happen is when you have low Earth orbiting constellations of satellites, they evenly serve the Earth. So you start to see the Earth as a globe that is evenly served for communications and interconnectivity. So the digital divide goes away. The ability of universities and other countries to put up science and observation capability will change the way science is done, in that it'll be impossible to ignore data from space because it will be ubiquitous. I mean, there will be every handful of universities who want to get together and put a satellite into orbit will be able to do so. We'll also be able to put up the foundations for real logistics in space, FedEx in space, so that we can easily get satellites to orbit when they want. We call it orbit on demand, and really serve a whole array of customers. Our system also is portable. I mean, we're a 747. All of our ground equipment is on trailers. And so there are a number of countries that we talk to who would frankly like us to visit sometime and put a satellite of theirs into space. And so the idea is to democratize space. And all of that, you know, space and science has a habit of inspiring our youth. And I mean, that's another aspect that our team is very plugged into and very, frankly, inspired ourselves with. And so there's a lot of interaction with schools, STEM, and just the existence of capability from space, seeing launches happen, having engineers visiting schools and so forth, has the effect of really bringing the youth into the business. And that's good for the business, and it's good for the community. So we're here to democratize space for the benefit of life on Earth. That's who we are. That's our vision. That's our purpose. That's what drives our team and gets us to work early in the morning and keeps us there late at night. So what are we doing, and where are we in this endeavor? Last week, we drove our first rocket out of our factory. Our factory is located at the north end of Long Beach Airport in one of the new buildings. So this is our first rocket. It's the Pathfinder rocket. It's currently hanging up in Mojave on this test stand, where we'll be fueling it with real rocket fuel, liquid oxygen and kerosene. And it's a two-stage rocket. You can see the sort of the second stage there near that conical section in the front, and the rest of it is the first stage. And a rocket is a big fuel tank with serious engines on it. So we've got a 75,000 pounds of thrust in the back and about 5,000 pounds of thrust on the upper stage, and it has some good get up and go. We'll then be taking this rocket, splitting the stages apart and firing them each up in Mojave. We've been up there firing engines. We do all of our hazardous work up in Mojave, where we have a team of about 45. Most of our 400 people are in our core location there by the airport. And then I don't have a picture of Cosmic Girl in here, but she's parked right there at Long Beach Airport. And thanks to Jess and the team for having us there. If you drive down Conant Street, you can see her smiling at you as you roll down the street. And as we were talking, it's a nice inspiration for the team to see her every morning. So that's these are the baby pictures. Just, you know, we couldn't help just snap a few of them. We have a very proud team. You know, we have a great team of young folks who are new to the industry. We have a fair amount of folks who came from other new space companies. You know, there's a couple of other companies in the area, and we have a sort of a unique brand with a lot of energy coming from the new space sector, and also a lot of really great themes coming from the Virgin Group, and how Richard sees companies and how he values people, and he values the purpose. And then we have people like me who have been in the industry for a while, and it's really great having, you know, new ideas coming in as well as proven processes and disciplines coming together, and it's a nice mix. And then we have people from other industries like the auto industry, Silicon Valley, you know, other industries local in the area, and other Virgin Group companies that help us with the overall spirit. So it's a great team. What I thought I would do is, you know, let you hear directly from them. So I brought a little video, and you can hear a little bit about the energy and the ideas and the thought and the spirit from the team we have right here in Long Beach. Okay. Or I could sing a song. If there's any requests. Okay, I'm going to start it again. There we go. It sounds like we've got some serious.
The fact that I get to do cool things, make the world a better place, and I get to work on space stuff, that's really inspiring for me. It's a great reason to get out of bed every day.
We work in an incredible environment, right? You only have to take a step out onto the shop floor and see why this place is unique.
So what is Virgin doing differently? We're trying new technologies. We want to make a rocket that even Wernher von Braun would be surprised to see.
What stood out to me the most was the fact that this company is willing to take those non-traditional approaches to what we've done in the past, and that's just going to change the space industry.
For the past 50, 60, 70, 100 years, it's been done this way.
We don't have to partake in what's considered status quo.
I mean, you guys know about the carbon fiber tanks, right? And the way the flight computer is done and some of the software choices we made very early in the program. Never been done before, things that showed to be successful and are now really showing the fruits of their labor.
What we're focused on right now is printing some of the hardest parts of the rocket engines. Definitely save orders of magnitude in time and cost from the way that we're manufacturing our rocket engines today.
You know, that's a huge innovation in simplicity, in design, and simplicity is what we're looking for.
The best things at Virgin is the culture here and the ability to make decisions. And the thing that affords is the ability to move very rapidly and then improve the design of the vehicle and field it as quickly as possible.
Like you come into a company like this and you think, there's nothing like this. There really isn't.
I think Virgin's really about the people. They're really what make this community and what make this company work.
To be around some of the smartest people on Earth building rockets, it's pretty inspiring.
We put a lot of effort into bringing our talents out in each other. But you've got a lot of freedom to do the right thing the way you know how.
I definitely feel like I'm part of a family. It's not just a team, it's a family.
You want your people to be happy. That's really why I picked Virgin.
People want to be here and people want to see small sats go to space.
It's a unique solution because we're their dedicated ride to space.
Technology keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's enabling much greater access and ability for everyone to have their hand on something in space.
Doing things in space, we can make things happen here on Earth in a global way, and it's changing the world for good. I think this team is contributing in a big way.
Well, yeah, every kid loves space, but you know, you get older and you're like, what are the odds that I'm going to be working in the space industry, you know?
Space industry, it is great to be in Long Beach, and it's an even better combination. So thank you very much.
Wow, I am so inspired by that video and by your talk, Dan. Just to see the diversity of what's happening at Virgin Orbit, to see what they're working on in space. I mean, it makes me so proud. Again, our city is a wonderful city. For those of you who know me, you know I love our city dearly, and it's so cool to have this right here in our own backyard. So thank you, Dan. We appreciate you. Also at this time, I'd like to invite the Civic Innovation and Equity panel. If you could start making your way up here. I have a few announcements I'm going to make as you're making your way up here to your seats. So bringing us down to the planet a little bit. In just a moment, we're going to hear a panel about civic innovation and equity. And so these individuals are going to speak from their various disciplines and how they're using equity and innovation in the work that they're doing. Councilwoman Lena Gonzalez sends her apologies. She was not able to make it here today. As you know, many of you know, she works for Microsoft and she's doing some amazing things with that company. And she apologized she wasn't able to get away from her busy schedule. So as the Innovation and Equity panel is making their way up, I don't see them yet. If they can come and have a seat. Thank you. As you're coming to have your seat, I'm going to share a few things. I want to really thank our summit sponsors. Without our sponsors today, this would not be made possible. There were no government dollars used for this event today. It was our wonderful sponsors who really pitched in and helped make today what it is. So I want to give a quick shout out to the Long Beach Airport. Jess Romo's here, the director of our airport. Bloomberg Philanthropies, which funds innovation, and the I-Team here in Long Beach. The City of Long Beach Technology and Innovation. Brian Sestokas. We also have LBTV, who's running the live stream, and we have Dennis Hunter in the back with his team, who's been supporting this work. And you're going to see some cool videos of our award winners later today. This was all put on by LBTV. We also want to thank the Long Beach Public Library, Molina Healthcare for hosting the event for us today, the Long Beach Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Equity, Kelly Colopy, the health director, and of course, last but not least, Economic and Property Development, my good friend John Keisler, who you're going to hear from in just a moment. So again, a quick round of applause for all of our sponsors for sponsoring this event today. Well, I'm so excited and pleased. You know, as the innovation team and management assistants, you're going to meet our team later today who put this summit together. But as we were talking about innovation, you know, our management assistants are talking about equity. This is the new conversation across the country and in many cities, and of course our city, which is one of the most diverse cities in the country. How do we couple equity and innovation, right? This is a big philosophical ideas. How do we ground them and make them reality in Long Beach? And so I'm so proud of our team who put together this panel, and I'm so honored to introduce, and if I mess up your name, I apologize, correct me, and I will say it the right way. Angie Jean Marie is the interim director of LA 2050. She will serve as our moderator. Teresa Chandler, Human Services Bureau Manager, City of Long Beach. John Keisler, Economic Development Director here in the City of Long Beach. Nikki Okuk, founder of Rico Tires. And Susanna Sneum, Executive Director of the United Cambodian Community. I'd like to turn it over to our moderator, who's going to walk us through a conversation around civic innovation and equity. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you all for being here this morning. I'm really excited for this panel. As I was preparing, I was doing some Googling, and so many articles came up about the amazing work that you all are doing, so I'm really excited to hear from you. So as I'm thinking about this, I feel like there are certain words that are super buzzy these days, and I feel like our panel title hits on all of them: civic, innovation, and equity. And so I wanted to at least kick off this panel with just a point of view, my perspective on what these words mean. And so innovation, I think, is sort of, simply put, applying new models to solve old problems. And sometimes innovation is kind of like what we heard from our keynote speaker: completely new ideas, novel things that are going to blow your mind. But those examples of innovation are actually pretty rare. What we see more often are the application of old strategies, existing strategies, to new contexts and for different purposes. And I think that kind of innovation is impactful, it's important, and I think what we're going to hear from our speakers is a little bit of a mix of both of those strategies. And so civic innovation then is that sort of transformative model for the public good. And then with equity, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of sort of discussion of what equity means, but I'd love to, we're gonna hear from all of you about what that means to you. But equity isn't just about equality, it's not just about restoring balances, it's about addressing systematic discrimination, biases, and disinvestment in communities that have resulted in the conditions that we see today. And so I feel like sort of approaching this discussion with those things in mind, I'm excited to do. And so we're gonna skip formal introductions in favor of just launching into the discussion. And I'd love to hear from each of you guys about the work that you do sort of in brief, and then specifically about how your work sort of works at the intersection of civic innovation and equity. So we can start with you, Susanna.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Susanna Siem. I'm the Executive Director of United Cambodian Community. And United Cambodian Community promotes and advocates for the well-being and advancement of the Cambodian community here in the greater Long Beach area. So if none of you are new to Long Beach, if you're new to Long Beach, then you should know that Long Beach has the largest Cambodian population in the nation outside of Cambodia. And we have a particular location in central Long Beach called Cambodia Town. Back in the 1980s, over 300,000 Cambodian refugees immigrated here to the United States, and majority of them settled here in Long Beach because there was already a small population of Cambodian students studying here at Cal State Long Beach. And for us here at UCC, we've been serving the community for 40 years. And we really focused on immigrant integration. In the very beginning, it was more about the immediate needs of being able to have people placed into shelter and then be able to understand the culture here in Long Beach. But as our community has grown, what we see is that the Cambodian community is often put into the larger Asian population. And what we do at UCC is that we demystify the Asian model minority myth, in which Asians are seen as super successful in economics and also in schools. But what we see in the Southeast Asian community, because our immigration story is a lot different than other East Asian communities, is that we have higher disparities when it comes to poverty and crime. Within the Cambodian community itself, what we see is that 52% of our Cambodian adults only have high school degrees, and only 16% of them have college degrees. And what we also see is that the Cambodian community has high disparities when it comes to health. We have high chronic health conditions. When you look at Cambodian adults, over 49% have 5 or more chronic conditions, and that includes mental health conditions. Within the Cambodian community, 62% of our adults have PTSD and 52% have depression. And what we're seeing is that this compounded trauma that came from the genocide and also immigrating here to the United States into high poverty areas has caused this trauma to be given to our next generation. And so what we're seeing right now is that 1 out of 2 young adults and our young people have depression symptoms also. And so what we see here in Long Beach is that the Cambodian community continues to have these disparities when it comes to health and mental health. And what UCC is doing is being able to bring in culturally defined practices into these mental health and health strategies, and also being able to bring the Cambodian perspective when it comes to economic development. And we can definitely go into that later on into our discussion.
Hi, good morning. My name is Nikki Okuk, and I am the founder, owner, and operator of RCO Tires. I feel like we're kind of the new kid on the block here. We're only 5 years old, and we relocated here to Long Beach about 3 years ago. We're in the northern sort of Long Beach, Compton industrial zone there. And our business revolves really around servicing this huge hub, the port and the transportation and the trucks that are going in and out of this area and servicing the entire country. What we do is we recycle truck tires. We make all kinds of crazy things. We make bumpers, bases for traffic barrels and things like that. And all of those things are very unique, actually. It sounds strange, but it was all product innovation that was done right here. And the second part of our business is really employing from underemployed communities. So most of the people, the 14, 15 guys that are there at our shop every day, recycling the truck tires that come out of the port, are folks who are formerly incarcerated or formerly houseless, facing immigration issues and things like that. So we didn't necessarily begin our business as a social enterprise, which is what we're described as now. We really did get into business to make money. And the mission, and I think what drives us and motivates us, has definitely changed over the last few years as we've become more engaged in our community and more involved with our employees. And so a long-term vision for RCO is really more about fostering more small businesses, using our small business as a hub to inspire and enable other entrepreneurs to create businesses around ours. We've already had some success in that with truck driving and welding and other things. When I moved back to the U.S. and decided that I wanted to start a business here, there were so many things that attracted me to the area, including the fact that this is the world's point of greatest ethnic diversity. And I feel like the community that we've built around ourselves and our vision for creating local small business ownership and entrepreneurship is really just fulfilling so much bigger life goal for myself than just recycling tires. Though I am very proud of what we've done recycling tires. It's diverted 30 million gallons of oil from local landfills, and we've also diverted 130 million pounds of rubber into new products so far.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Teresa Chandler, and I oversee the Human Services Bureau in the Department of Health and Human Services. The Department of Health and Human Services is broken down into 6 bureaus, and the Human Services Bureau encompasses the Homeless Services Division and the Community Impact Division. So the City of Long Beach has our own continuum of care for our homeless services. So there's a lot of terms that I will try not to throw out because you probably don't know what they are. But what that means is, as a jurisdiction or as a city, we apply directly to HUD every year to receive funding for our homeless services. Whereas there are 88 cities in the county of Los Angeles, there are 3 cities that have our own continuum of care, which means we apply directly to get those funding, to get those funds, excuse me. And then LASA, which is a Los Angeles combination of city and county, has the other 85 cities. So it gives us a lot of leeway and I guess we get to make a lot of our own decisions based on our local need regarding homeless services. And then also under the Community Impact Division is our city's violence prevention plan and our Center for Families and Youth. So those are the programs that focus on our youth and children, working directly with DCFS, the Department of Children and Family Services, another acronym that I'm throwing out. And so as a city, we really have a unique opportunity. We also have our own health department. So I don't know if you're aware that there are 3 cities in the state of California that have our own health department. Other cities work with the local county. So we get to work directly with all of our departments to focus on the needs of the city. There are disparities across the city. I don't know if you're aware, but we've got several zip codes. Across our zip codes, there's about a 7-year life discrepancy. So from one zip code in West or North Long Beach compared to East, we can look at the life discrepancy. And so that really helps us to focus on what the needs are in each of those zip codes and address the needs accordingly. So if we talk about the definition of equity, we really need to start there. It's pretty simple. The numbers don't lie. We look at the data, and we really have to dig in deep to what's happening across the city. And it just is what it is. So if we look at our resource distribution, part of what I get to do and enjoy doing every day with my team in the health department, with our director, Kelly Colaby, is really focus on those disparities and looking through a health lens, but also an equity lens. The health department also just opened the Office of Equity, which opened in January of this year. And that's really digging deep into our structures and our systems and like the school district and the police department and our fire department, all of our wonderful departments that keep our city going. But let's dig deep into how we can make sure that resources are distributed equally throughout the city. And under the Human Services umbrella, I get to really dig deep into that.
Well, good morning.
And congratulations to Tracy and the team for pulling this together, our second annual Civic and Innovation Summit. And this location is absolutely fantastic because we not only get to talk about Long Beach, but we get to look out on it. We get to see a lot of the different neighborhoods and economic clusters throughout the city. And so for me, every single day as we think about how we can create economic opportunity for our workers, our investors, and our entrepreneurs in the city, I think this is a really good view of what's going on out there and where those opportunities are. My name is John Keisler. I'm the Economic Development Director. We're one of the newest departments in the city of Long Beach. In fact, for about 10 years there, we didn't have a community development or economic development department. And so under the leadership of Mayor Robert Garcia, our city council, we reconstituted our investment in economic development just a couple of years ago and formed the Economic Development Department for the city. We report to the city manager. We're in the city structure, and we have a number of different programs. And so primarily, we have a workforce development bureau, which is actually Pacific Gateway. It's a workforce investment network recognized by the federal government. We use Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funding to provide workers with transitional training, connect them with employers, as well as helping our employers, our local businesses, to find the workforce that they need so that they can grow and be successful. And we have some of our staff members like Lucius here today who spends their time reaching out to our local industry and businesses to find out, hey, what is it that you need to be successful from a workforce standpoint, and how can we provide the programs that get people in that pipeline to connect them with opportunity. The second area that we focus on in economic development is called real estate and property development. And so as you look outside and you see these 4 cranes that are up right now with more coming, that's an example of selling city property. Most of these are former surface parking lots that were purchased years ago by the redevelopment agency. And now out of the 260 properties we own, about 150 of those have been sold. We have many, many more that we are going to retain for government use and for other purposes. But as we've sold off these properties in our department, and working with our development services department, the private sector will come in and build housing, both affordable and market rate, as well as some of the other uses that we see. We also manage the properties, the city assets like the Queen Mary, the Convention Center, the aquarium, and all of the different city-owned properties that are in Long Beach. And then finally, the third area where we focus is what we call business development. So how do we help entrepreneurs and small businesses to get started in the city, to find opportunity, whether it's a site, a location where they want to move or build, or it could be the example of connecting them with workforce. And so we use small business loans. We use federal money to help create our revolving loan funds. We're launching some new initiatives to help with access to capital, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, to help improve the equity and representation of our immigrant, minority, and women-owned business in the city. But essentially, those are the 3 major areas where we think people make money. And I'll finish with this. One of the big initiatives that we are in the middle of and embarked this year, we have at least one of our economic development commissioners, Walter Larkins, here. And so the mayor had asked, he's in the back, standing room only, and he's a tall guy, so he needs, you don't want to stand behind him. But the mayor had asked that the Economic Development Commission craft a blueprint for economic development. The mayor said, hey, look, the world's changing economically. We heard a lot of this from Dan about, how space is changing and how the markets are changing. And a lot of that is being driven by information technology. I mean, all this, the connectivity and communications infrastructure is creating all kinds of new economic opportunities for people. And if you're connected, you're good. If you're not connected, the gap's going to get even wider. So our mayor said, hey, Commission, what do we need to do to position our city, position Long Beach and our residents to be economically competitive in this new information service-based, advanced manufacturing type economy? And so for 26 community meetings, our commissioners bravely went out and talked to panels of developers and entrepreneurs and creatives in many different sectors, housing and community advocates. And they came up with something called the Economic Development Blueprint. Now, There's a lot in there, and it's a very high level, about a 12-page document that says, hey, this is just generally what we heard from the community. And then we had people like Dr. Robert Kleinhens, who's here, and Beacon Economics to help us with the data, to look at employment development department data to say, hey, what's been going on for the past couple of years with employers and employees? What are the trends? Where are the opportunities? And then we were able to categorize or break the 82 recommendations down into about 7 key focus areas. What's exciting about that is that one of the key areas that started to emerge over and over again in the data, as well as in the community, was this issue about economic inclusion. And so I'm proud to say, and I think that the commission and the council, we have your traditional development environment, business assistance, you know, the sort of the traditional go-to economic development department areas of lines of business. But then there's this issue of economic inclusion that emerged and is now sort of gravitated to the front that cuts across every different sector. Every single industry is asking questions. Every single geographic region, every city is asking. So how do we plug as many people, many of our residents, into the economy in a meaningful way? And how do we meet them where they are and get them the support that they need so that they can compete? And ultimately, a connected community where everybody's in is going to be a much more vibrant, dynamic, and powerful economy for a city, particularly like Long Beach. So we'll talk a little bit more about the economic inclusion focus area as we move into the discussion, but that's an area where we're extremely excited. Our commission is excited. We just, council just launched a few initiatives last Tuesday night to really get us going. But the blueprint, when I use that terminology, that's the 10-year economic development strategic plan, and we'll unpack that a little bit more.
Awesome, thank you all. Just to get a sense of who's in the room, who here works in government? Raise your hand. Lots of you. In private sector? Okay. Community-based organizations, nonprofits? Sweet. So given that, you know, the prevailing majority of you work in government, I'd love to hear from Teresa and from John about what some specific projects that you've worked on that kind of challenge the status quo of how you've done your work before in the past and are sort of applying these transformative models to change things in Long Beach with an equity lens. Teresa, I'd love to start with you.
Sure. So I'll start with our homeless work because that's been a challenge. As a county, we all know that homelessness is growing, right? Throughout the county, our numbers are going up, throughout the state, throughout the nation. We're in a housing crisis right now, and folks just can't lease up. And in Long Beach specifically, there's a 2% vacancy rate, so it's even worse. So folks that are walking around with vouchers in Section 8 are in competition with folks that aren't using vouchers, and a lot of our landlords, it's easier to not work with the Section 8, and so we're making a call to action, and we've been working closely with our city representatives and our government partners to reach out to the community to make sure that we can get folks into housing, because that's really what homelessness is about. It's not about, there's a lot of layers and factors to homelessness, but that's really what it calls for, and of all of us coming together. So that's really important. Another thing is the way that we reach out to our community members that are experiencing homelessness. I think Long Beach, definitely, not I think, but I know that Long Beach has a very unique outreach network that we have an interdepartmental team, so we work so close with our police department, our fire department, public works, parks and recs, the libraries, and we come together monthly to talk about how we can outreach. And so this network, we have the quality of life officers who are part of the police department in partnership with a Department of Mental Health clinician. And then also our HEART team, which is an innovative group that it was a pilot program last year, and now it's been funded for this coming year, which are 2 paramedics that also go out, and they're not directly linked to the 911 system, but they are going out with our outreach network, so that a lot of times our homeless folks are high utilizers of the system. They're coming in to the emergency rooms to get basic services and basic health care. And so that's definitely how we're handling that. And so I can say that our outreach network, they cover the 52 square miles of Long Beach on a regular, every day on a regular basis. And we can pretty much name everybody. They know everybody by name. So that's really developing and building those relationships with folks. Sometimes it takes one contact to get someone to come in, and sometimes it takes 5 years of contact because not everybody is ready, because everybody's story is different. And so we're looking at the challenges with our mental health. So that's a huge issue that we're facing. And then also substance abuse. And we don't have a lot of resources for folks to get folks in. We work directly with the county for those resources, but it's always about how we can leverage those partnerships. So building partnerships, building the capacity within the city, but it's not just the city, it has to be our community. And then everybody willing to step in. And what does that look like to really help? So we have called to action. We had a summit in the spring, a homeless summit, and then we also had a faith-based summit. So bringing together our faith-based organizations also, how can they help? How can we all get involved? So I think that's an example.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so going back to this idea about the mission, this is something that we talk about every day in our department is, we're here to help create economic opportunities for workers, investors, and entrepreneurs. Those are the three ways that we found out most people make their money. They either work for somebody else, they work for themselves as a small business owner or business owner, or they invest in other people's projects. That could be real estate, equities, whatever, investing, venture capital. And so simplifying things, we don't necessarily think of ourselves as the city or as government on a day-to-day basis. We really think of ourselves as how do we facilitate helping these three groups of people make more money? Because that's what an economic development department should do. It should help people make more money. If you're a worker, you call us, you should be making more money a year from now than you are today. If you're an entrepreneur, small business, you want to grow, we might help you with a loan, but the real test of that program success is that you're making more money a year from now than you did before you met us. So first of all, I think getting sort of that label or that sense of who you are as government out of the way is an important first step. You're a problem solver, you're a facilitator. And the second thing is Teresa's hit on it 3 or 4 times in her examples, is that you don't have to solve people's problems. It's not the government that necessarily is going to create the program, pay for the program, do the work, or provide the solution. In fact, in most cases, when it comes to innovation and equity, it's absolutely not going to be the city. You're going, by meeting users, workers, investors, and entrepreneurs where they are. You said some people are ready to go today, some people are ready to go in 5 years. You meet them where they are, you understand their experience, and through that process you identify the partners who are in the community, the champions who understand and connect with those individuals. And through partnerships, you're able to identify unique and new ideas and solutions and perspectives that you would never consider inside the conference room of City Hall. So some of the cool projects that have popped up as a result of this strategy, what we call, I've learned from Heather Barker at Cal State Long Beach, the art college, the design school, is design thinking. You go out in the field, you meet the users where they are, and you start to learn about their experience. What has happened is that we have come on a couple of programs recently that I'm really excited about that highlight the power of just trying to solve a problem, no matter who delivers the service and who runs the program, but that government can be an excellent facilitator of partnerships. So one example that we just launched this last week is a micro-lending program. So we had heard in our research and our outreach with small businesses, particularly those entrepreneurs that don't have friends and family with a lot of money. And that's a lot of our underrepresented entrepreneurs. These are people who don't come from families of wealth. So the number one way that most people start their businesses financially is that they go to friends and family. Or they use their credit cards. And that's not always the best way to start your business. But that's usually where people start. So people who don't have wealthy networks of friends and family often find it's very, very difficult to get that first $10,000. People who don't have credit history or revenue history find it hard to get a loan from a traditional commercial bank or to even get a credit card. So in exploring the solutions that were out there, government's traditional, we talked about, we've got a revolving loan fund. What could we do with our existing funds, yada, yada, yada. And as we started to explore these solutions, we realized that, hey, There's technology out there that can manage this for us. There is a nonprofit, in this case it's Kiva, that actually has done $1 billion worth of microloans across the world. And guess what? There's nonprofits out there, like in this case LISC, which is a regional CDFI, a community development financial institution, who could help actually set this up for us. And all we need to do is find out some money. Well, guess what? There's a local foundation that believes in entrepreneurship who wants to pay for that. So by connecting these different individuals with each other, these organizations, the vice mayor last week on behalf of the council announced that, hey, we're charging full steam ahead. And look how little the city actually needed to do to get this program, to start working on a solution for micro-lending. Now, here's the cool part. Where does the money come from? Who is going to lend this money? And what about all this risk? These are poor people who have never paid a loan back. Well, guess what? The money comes from the community. And the lenders are actually the people in the community who lend $25, $50, $100 at a time. In fact, I'm a lender. I got my first repayment yesterday as well. And I loaned $25 to this woman, Jennifer, who's trying to buy her first commercial sewing machine and her first inventory of fabric to get her business going. And my $25 will be repaid over 18 months. So I got my first $1.40 back, monthly payment, and it goes back into Kiva, which is managing the whole thing, gives me updates. It's now saying, do you want to relend that money to somebody else? And I said, sure. 97% repayment rate, and all of the principal loan funds are not coming from the city or the SBA or the EDA or some of these other companies. It's actually coming from your community, from the people who want to do something small to help small businesses and who believe in economic inclusion and equity, but don't know how to do it. Now we're giving them a choice. And so we're starting down this path. We got a foundation to fund a nonprofit to help us set it up. We're also now seeking lenders and trustees and we'll eventually borrowers and all that. But you don't have to put so much pressure on yourself to solve all these problems. In fact, by getting out there, finding out a need, and then sometimes acting government as facilitator rather than regulator or problem solver, there might be money and resources and capacity and expertise that exists already, and it's just bringing those things together to solve a problem for somebody. So that would be one example of an innovative way to get something done without having to build a big, massive program within City Hall. And so stay tuned, and I want everybody in this room to become a lender. It's super fun. You get to follow the business plan. You get to see the entrepreneur launch, 97% repayment rate, so then you can recycle your loan to somebody else. That's true community and economic development.
Awesome.
Great.
And Susanna, in your initial sort of opening remarks, you talked about culturally defined strategies. And Nikki, you mentioned the work that you do in helping to support the folks that work with you to explore their own sort of businesses. So I want to ask the both of you, how do you approach the work of bringing in marginalized communities and approaching innovation in a way that's inclusive and representative of those community voices? And then I want to tag on a second question is, so once you've done that, how do you work with government agencies, with other institutions, in order to help them open up the doors to support the work that you and the communities that you work with want to see implemented?
Okay, I'll try to answer all
sorry.
of that. Well, with UCC, one of the things that we have spearheaded is that we are the lead convener of the Cambodian Advocacy Collaborative. So it's a collaborative among the 5 largest Cambodian service agencies here in Long Beach, which includes UCC, Cambodian Association of America, Khmer Girls in Action, Khmer Parents Association, and Families in Good Health. And we've been in a formal partnership for the past 5 years, and we've done large listening sessions with our community. And this year, because there isn't disaggregated data within the Cambodian community here in Long Beach, we decided to take that upon ourselves. And so we conducted our own Cambodian Community Needs Assessment in partnership with Cal State Long Beach, and we had over 220 Cambodian residents participate in the survey, and we had 50 residents participate in a focus group. And right now we're analyzing the data. We're going to be issuing out a executive summary in the beginning of December, so you'll be all invited to that event. But what we're seeing within that community needs is that economic development continues to be a huge need within the Cambodian community. And within Long Beach itself, there's no one agency that is serving the Cambodian community when it comes to economic development. And so that's where UCC has stepped up in our leadership to provide that opportunity for our community members and offer it in Khmer, which is the language that Cambodian community members use, and connect to strategic partnerships, which includes the city of Long Beach, specifically with Pacific Gateway. And one of the ways that we've started to do that is that we provided youth development within our workforce development program. And what's unique about our specific program is that we integrate the value of family within our youth development work. And we do a cohort-based model. And so we bring 10 youth together and they go through the training with each other. And in the very beginning, we have them go through a soft skills training, which essentially is a 2-week-long retreat in which they build relationships with one another, build that commitment to one another, and see each other as family, and see UCC and our staff as family, and that we're here to support them. Because many of them don't have other family members that are encouraging them, and we provide that feedback and that accountability. I'm happy to also say that we are expanding our program to English learners and working with adults now. And so we're working with Pacific Gateway and also Central Cha is helping with the Latino community here in Long Beach. We're looking forward to ways that we can connect English learners to not only workforce development, but also to LBCC and their ESL classes there, and the Long Beach Adult School and the ESL classes there. And so we're going to provide navigation services and also just break down what these pathways look like for our community members to help increase their skills and in English and also in the workforce. Another program that we have started is that within Cambodia Town, they've been designated as Cambodia Town for the past 10 years. And just recently, about 2 or 3 years ago, the city created the Midtown Business Improvement District, in which now there are assessment fees that are being invested back into Cambodia Town, into the small businesses that are there. And so in Cambodia Town itself, there are Cambodian-owned businesses, but also Latino-owned businesses. And so we're doing the work of really bringing us together and uniting the businesses together and building the relationship of supporting one another. UCC has opened up a business center in which we are having a business navigator walk alongside these small businesses and educate them about the opportunities that are connected through the city of Long Beach, small business loans, educating them about marketing and what they can do to grow their businesses. One of the great things and strengths about the Cambodian community is that entrepreneurship has been a huge part of how we thrive here in Long Beach. Back in the 1980s, someone opened a donut shop. And since then, this owner has brought these tools to other Cambodian families. And so if you go to visit any donut shop here in Long Beach or the greater Long Beach area, it's probably owned by a Cambodian family. And that's a model that we want to continue to do. Yes. And so we have those skills. It's just connecting the Cambodian community to these greater capacities that are not in the network within the Cambodian community. And so that's why we partner with the city of Long Beach, and that's why we're partnering with other businesses and other nonprofits that provide small business loans to our community because we have those skills. These are the seeds that are in our community. They just need some watering and some growth and some nurturing, and we can continue to grow from there.
Let's see. So as I mentioned before, we hadn't necessarily started RCO with the mission of being a social enterprise. But very quickly we learned that the need was there. I think one of our first employees was probably down at the probation officer and just sort of put the word out, hey, there's this tire recycling company in North Long Beach that doesn't do background checks. And before I knew it, my door was being banged down by people that really wanted to work. And so it's been interesting because At first I said, I have this open door policy. If any of you guys want to come in here and talk to me about, starting your own little trucking company, starting your own little welding company, I've been through the ringer. I know what it is to try to finance and bootstrap a company with absolutely no wealthy friends or family. And it's very difficult to get that first funding and to get going and to get, navigate the permitting process and things like that. So a few people did come in and take me up on my offer, but I also realized that I had to meet a lot of people where they were at. We had folks that came in that were interested, but they had to work on their personal credit first, or really even just had to stabilize their housing situation first, or reunite their families sometimes. And I feel like I've gotten a sort of a crash course in social work through this process because we've done all of those things, sitting down with people and showing them how to open up their first credit cards, navigating them to resources like Kiva and Jewish Free Loan Association and other ways that you can finance a small business when you don't have much. And I realized also in the process that while I was saying this to them, I wasn't taking my own advice. Which is to reach out and look for other people that had those resources to help us. I think that there's a tendency as small business owners to kind of avoid interacting too much with the government, to sort of try to just stay in your lane and hopefully not get caught doing something that you didn't even know you were doing wrong. And I thought, okay, this isn't the right way to do it. I better go out and ask for help. And so I really started knocking on the doors of my representatives and my local community resources and local government officials. And the amount of support that I got was incredible. So thank you to all of you here. I'm sure there's a few. Everything from helping us, find our real estate or secure funding, navigating permitting processes, and then also finding resources for my employees so that I didn't necessarily have to do everything myself. So it's actually been a really wonderful collaborative relationship that we've had with our local government officials that I didn't necessarily expect it to be that way. It was a very pleasant surprise. And I think that as far as innovation, I've been very pleasantly surprised to find that there were so many people working within government agencies that really did want to think about new strategies. I think that small businesses have a tendency to think of the government as sort of this monolith that's very static and unchanging. The rules are what they are, and you must abide by them to the letter, and that everybody that's working there is an enforcer, right? And it hasn't been that way at all. In fact, very often I was able to enter into conversations and say, hey, these are our needs. And folks went out of their way to find resources and access points and ways that programs could be created or changed in order to really serve the needs of our community. So overall, it's been an excellent experience, and I know that we can do more of it. I know we can do more of it. Because sometimes you do hit a wall and they say, well, it just doesn't work like that. But we have to be willing as business owners and as community members and as government workers to sort of say, well, why not? Why couldn't we just do it some other kind of way than we've done it in the past? I mean, recycling, the industry that I, for some reason, chose to be in, is incredible. It's very highly regulated. It's a very highly regulated industry. And there's lots of penalties associated with not, conducting your business correctly. But we can challenge ourselves to think about what the end goals are and new ways to sort of arrive there that maybe we haven't thought of in the past. And that's really been a lot of our mission at RCO, is just to do something different than the way it's been done before. So thank you, everyone.
Awesome. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface, and I know we want to leave some time for questions. I'm going to ask one last question, and maybe limit your responses to 15 to 30 seconds. But where do you find inspiration in the civic innovation realm? Where are you looking around the region within Long Beach and seeing sort of that next wave of really creative work happening on the issues that you guys are addressing?
Sure. So, I think one of the areas that is really exciting for government, and I think Tracy can relate to this, is the world of art. And I mentioned Heather. I mentioned the art college and design, and I think that a place that we can all look to to get the strategies and to implement a process which will open our eyes to new and exciting opportunities is by connecting with your university. Connect with your art college. We've got incredible creative economy in Southern California. In fact, 420,000 or so jobs, Robert knows this, in the creative economy. It's the center of the world for the creative economy, Southern California. And we have Otis and Pasadena Art College and Cal State Long Beach, graduating 500 designers a year. But as government, I'm really looking at the way that they train user experience, the way that they train design thinking, and to use a different process. You can talk to the same people and you can look at the same resources that have always been around you in a completely different way if you use a different process and a different lens. So I would suggest us, I was a master's of public administration, went to a public policy school, and we used surveys, and we would generally look for insights. Well, what does the majority say? And the majority need this and that. And the designers said, like Harrison in here, Harrison, who's totally nuts because he's an industrial designer, he said, well, what about the extreme case? What about the 1%? And if we can design a solution for the 1%, why won't it work for the middle majority? And that's like turning public policy on its head, because usually we do polls and surveys and we say, well, that's where the greatest opportunity is. So I would suggest to you, in terms of inspiration, is number one, try a different approach. Borrow an approach from a different industry or sector. Computer science, blown my mind in terms of how logical they have to be in terms of programming. It's very helpful. It's very, very helpful to implement a new framework to an existing industry. And then secondly, you have got to know your users. You have got to spend time out there with your users, understanding their challenges and mapping their experience. All kinds of creative, exciting insights will come from that. And then lastly, the solutions are all around us. I mean, look at the most exciting example this morning in terms of Virgin Orbit. They're using an existing technology, actually multiple existing technologies, but they're repackaging them in a new way. And one of the most innovative things is, how do we use these old 747s or 777s? What can we do with them? Because they can get up and down anywhere in the world, and they can pick up rockets, which we have. We just need to refine the model. But let's look at what we've already got. It doesn't have to be some crazy cool idea. It could be just repackaging and reusing what we already have available to us. So those are the kind of the three things I would offer.
You know how to stretch 30 seconds, John.
I know. I'll keep mine shorter. I absolutely agree with what John is saying, so I'll just say that. But I run youth and family programs and homeless programs and things like that. So I am not the expert. The community that I'm working with, they're the experts. So that's where I get my passion and drive from, is like the 5-year-olds and the families that I'm working with. Let's sit down on the floor and be creative and figure something out. Or the youth services network, or the youth program, or the youth board that we want to create. We're starting to develop with the violence prevention team. And let the youth drive it. Let the youth drive the work. What's going to work for you? What keeps you off the streets? What keeps you resilient and successful in school? And what keeps you going back to school? So let's focus on that. It's very easy to continue to focus on what's not working and what's broken and the systems that aren't working and what's falling apart and the violence that's happening. But Long Beach has a lot of beauty and art and fabulous things that are happening here. And so my goal with my amazing team that I get to work with every day is to open the door to that. What's happening in Long Beach already, what's beautiful, and how do we build from there? Because there's a lot that's happening already. We don't have to reinvent any wheels. It's basically doing something different, as John was speaking to, and figuring out, being creative, taking risks, hiring people onto your teams that have different opinions. And then open a space for them to have those different opinions and share them, and then come to compromises and conclusions together, along with the community that we're working with.
So for me, I take a lot of, is this working? Yes, I take a lot of inspiration from the guys that I work with. Part of our practice at RCO has been a lot about creating sort of dignified, democratic workplaces. So when we get to the point of decision making about, how are we going to arrange this new manufacturing line, or how are we going to change our schedules, we sit down as a big group and we talk it out. And it's actually been really interesting to watch and learn from them as they develop sort of their own systems that work much better because they actually physically do the job. And so when I listen to these folks up here that are saying we're listening to our community, we're listening to our community, we're listening, that's really what we all have to do, right? Is we have to listen to our users. And so that's been a part of our growth process is trying to create democratic workplaces through that process. And then I was also so inspired listening to Virgin talk about how the access to technology is going to change this, because if I can bring in a monitor and I show the guys at my workplace more about, say, the tire manufacturing process or the tire recycling process, immediately lights start going off, right? Because these guys touch these tires every day. They know exactly what they're like. And all it really took was a little bit of information from the outside getting to them. And so creating access points for innovation, for people to like sort of access resources, ideas, and a space to then discuss it and develop it has completely changed the way that we do business. And so that's sort of who I take my inspiration from.
My inspiration definitely comes from participating in multicultural spaces. And one of the ways that we do that here in Long Beach is through the Building Healthy Communities Long Beach different coalition work that we do. And so we have coalition work that's around education, around land use, around language access, around local hire. And in these spaces, there's multiple languages that are speaking. There's Khmer, Spanish, English, Tagalog, and we're all listening to one another and sharing ideas. And within these spaces, we make decision-making together. One of the things that I really appreciated these past years is different processes that bring our community into higher decision-making levels, such as the participatory budgeting process, and also the People's Planning School, and teaching our residents on, okay, here are the structures that really shape our environment, and here are tools that you can learn how you can influence that and lift up your voice in shaping what that looks like. And so for me, being able to see my Cambodian community members, my older Cambodian seniors that are at city council meetings that are speaking up in Khmer about their experiences in accessing resources in the city and advocating for different signs in Khmer, that really inspires me, and that really inspires me when they're working together, the Cambodian community is working together with the Latino community, and that we have these shared experiences and shared understanding of this is a good decision that is working towards the greater good of our community.
Awesome, thank you. I think we have time for a couple of questions. I think the mics are gonna come around the room, but does anyone wanna ask anything of our panelists? Come on, people. Yes.
Hi, this has been amazing. My name is Michelle. I'm representing the Grant Neighborhood Association, the Long Beach Grocery Co-op, a new startup here in Long Beach, and a couple other things, but I'm really, really glad I'm here. Are there specific community liaisons through the departments that serve the small business that just in speaking in that there wasn't a specific person for the Cambodian community, that made me start thinking about why not? Why is there not, since that's I mean, in the United States, that's large, you know. So anyway, that's my question.
Yeah, no, excellent question. So just in terms of the way that we approach that right now, first and foremost in our business development line of business, we have a business development officer, Saeed Jalali, who many people have been touched over the years or come in contact with Saeed, who coordinates and is our first line of contact. And then we also have, for many years, our business improvement districts are one of those, community-based touch points. These are nonprofits. There's 10 of them in the city. They operate the property-based and merchant-based business improvement districts that are established by the city council, but managed by the nonprofits. And we were talking about the assessment fee in the Midtown bid. Mono is here, right back here in the back. And really, the executive directors of these business improvement districts are for their membership, for thousands of businesses in the city, the first line of contact. We're trying to supplement that now by introducing business navigators. And so one of the first ones, Susanna stepped up, and UCC is funded, and we're working with the business navigator at UCC to be trained in everything from BizPort, which is our online navigator, to any of the information that these business owners, particularly in Midtown, would need for small business loans and other resources in Kamai. And so we're sort of piloting this model to understand what they need, how to be successful, and to develop that model so that we have more community champions that know the community, that look like the community, speak like the community, and understand that experience. And that way we also improve the feedback loop to learn about those needs so that we can adjust our programs accordingly. And the last piece would be what Lucius does in terms of business outreach. And that's more of a workforce-focused effort to find out what kinds of skill sets are needed, and then to think critically about how can I help your business, either hiring or training, or how can I leverage some federal funds to help your business to get the workforce it needs from the community. So we do it in a couple of different ways.
My question, I think, is for John. My name is Anita Thinkable. I have a nonprofit, Local Choices for Global Respect. My question is primarily for John, but I want to thank the other three panelists. I first heard Susanna? I first heard about the work that she did a year ago when she spoke to her Kiwanis group. I was just amazed that such a petite little young lady can do so much in such an synergistic way to help so many people. And I'll use that kind of as a springboard to, as an piggyback on this lady's question about liaisons. My question is like John and maybe Teresa working on something where we can be the change we want to see in America? I thank, where's Tracy? Tracy, for the leadership that she's done in violence prevention. I remember hearing a comment that at one point when she was presenting Tracy's program to the city council, that we want to be the model that the rest of our country uses. So my question is there any effort, John, or anyone that speak to this, where we have Teresa representing health and homelessness, and then we have Nikki and Suzanne, Nikki representing a business, Suzanne representing an ethnic organization. If we're the most ethnic community, can we use ourselves as a model that we have to use that promotes whatever we do, it will do no harm? I don't know why they limit the oath of Hippocrates to doctors. I think it should be all to all of us. Can we use ourselves as a model city that the rest of the country follows?
Well, yeah. That's a simple answer, of course. I think there's a lot we can do. I know for us, working with I keep repeating myself, but working with the community is so inspiring, and that's how we can't do the work without doing that. What I know we can do better at is talking about what we do, right? So we get stuck in doing the work every day and running the programs and working with the clients and getting things done, but we don't talk about it. So as a city, we can promote that. As a region, as a county, I think we can do better at promoting ourselves and talking about the work that's coming out of Long Beach and the innovation that we have here. And that's one of my goals as a manager. I have to be at that 10,000-foot level, and that's one of my goals that I'm aspiring towards, is to make sure that we're marketing ourselves and talking about how we're doing it. I'm not that great at social media. I think I just missed that generation, kind of. But a lot of my team is really great at it, so I think there's ways that we can get the word out, but it's about talking about it and moving it in that way.
And one other idea I'll have to offer is that our mayor, Robert Garcia, has done a phenomenal job of leveraging our commissions. So every single person in this room, particularly if you're a resident of Long Beach, you want to get involved. I have learned a tremendous amount from our Economic Development Commission, as an example. They represent different sectors or segments of our local economy. They're subject matter experts, they're practitioners. They're not government people. But having that relationship, I wouldn't have these relationships if the mayor hadn't appointed these people. And not just as residents connecting and learning about each other, and they all love Long Beach, but they also represent opportunities for us to understand through the perspective of the user. You know, what is it like for the commercial broker or for the entrepreneur who, you know, is struggling to start their business? That is a way that you can become involved and represent these different interests in the community. It's a great, as I said, feedback loop for us to hear about the different perspectives that don't come up through the traditional path within City Hall. And then if used properly, I think if leveraged properly, this economic development blueprint, we are getting calls from all over the country because this wasn't written by a consultant. This wasn't written, you know, by a fancy management consulting firm who in their own words, and it didn't copy anybody else's plan out there. This was written based on the comments from 26 community meetings. We had to eliminate some redundancies. We had to categorize some stuff. But at the end of the day, we get a lot of energy and ownership from our commission and our community members who are now becoming the community champions of these initiatives because it's their words. And so I'd offer you that again as a process by which you can get involved, but also any organization can leverage. It takes a lot of time and energy and listening, but at the same time, on both sides, I think that's where communities are built.
I think I have the microphone. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Suzda Sabai to the Kamaya community. I just wanted to say that you have a ton of data geeks and algorithm geeks like me who want to contribute. And whether you're a nonprofit or a government agency or a for-profit, we would love to build our community because we love Long Beach and we want to make it better. So as John, my friend, said, include the art community and include the designers, but include the geeks like me, too.
One last question.
Well, I actually kind of almost wanted to echo the gentleman over there. I'm a starting entrepreneur. I have over 25 years in corporate IT, enterprise IT business, and I traveled all over North America working on Fortune 100 companies' projects, but eventually I kind of got disillusioned, and I noticed that this whole digital economy and transition to digital kind of leaves local neighborhoods in many American cities kind of untouched, and there is some struggle. And I'm coming with the premise that this global and digital and these transformations have to happen on the local level. So my question is, where can we start? How, like an entrepreneur like me, maybe the gentleman over there, how can we work with the city and who we have to work with, bringing projects, ideas, products ideas, and actually plans, actual business plans where we want to engage the local talents. My daughter is school shopping, so we're going in Long Beach. I'm a resident in District 5, so we're school shopping right now, and I see this incredible talent in high schools. And I'm like, these guys can be our resources. We don't need to outsource anywhere. These are the people that we need to nourish. This is going to be their employment basically from high school bench and through the college. So as the city leaders and
absolutely.
What's your advice?
So
Thank you.
I'm going to do this in 15 seconds. So number one, the city has embarked, and I will say this is the leadership of our Chief of Staff, Mark Taylor. This was his vision, to have this Center for Innovation in the city where people like this can go. Young people can find the entrepreneurial ecosystem support they need to start their business. They've got an idea, they're creative, they're an engineer, but they don't know anything about business administration, so they can go and find the capital, the coaching, the mentoring. And so Wade Martin, the new director of the Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Cal State Long Beach, is doing just that. Number two, next month, December 12th, I believe, we will be going to council to take a city space that's underutilized, and this was the mayor's vision, and the council member from District 1, Lena Gonzalez, to activate that space as a hub for innovation, and that's in partnership with City College. So we'll be working with them to activate that space as a hub for entrepreneurship and innovation, and the International Business Accelerator will be going there. Number three, I would say, Jeff Ryman is here. The broadband group is assisting the city and the vision of our city leadership to do a high-tech infrastructure master plan. This is our fiber master plan. And what can we do with the 60 miles of city-owned fiber that's currently being used for city facilities and traffic signals? How might we leverage that to connect neighborhoods and incent the private sector to go into places where they traditionally have not provided broadband service? And so Jeff is helping us with this, and council will be receiving a report tonight on how we might roll that out financially and otherwise so that we can use our assets, 60 miles of fiber, use those dark strands to leverage investment and hopefully connect every single household child in the city so that our workers, investors, and entrepreneurs have what they need to be successful. So a number of things, come talk to me. We've got tons of things going on in different departments, different partners across the city.
Thank you.
So the mayor's here, so I think we have to wrap up. But so this event is part of Long Beach Innovation Month and also Innovate LA, which is a 2-week celebration of innovation around the region. I feel like all of these panelists have shown you in amazing words and with amazing examples about how Long Beach is leading in innovation. And so I want to have you all join me in thanking them for their time and for their contributions. Rock on, keep doing it. So.
And thank you, Angie, for your leadership in the county and all the things you're doing with LA 2050. Just to make a quick plug, LA 2050 is an amazing organization. I highly encourage you to Google them and look at some of the innovative funding opportunities that they have available for nonprofits, government, and local business. So thank you, panelists. Well, wonderful. Well, as Angie said, the mayor is here, and it's such a pleasure to have the opportunity to welcome him this morning. You know, he is Mr. Innovation himself. He's the one that brought the innovation teams funded by Bloomberg in 2015. Ever since he was a council member, vice mayor, and now our mayor, he has really pushed the envelope in having our city government think differently about the way we do business. Every department has been pushed and prodded to think differently, to go out to the community, to talk to our constituents. So I'm going to read his bio. Dr. Robert Garcia, for those of you who don't know, he's 39. He's an educator and the 28th mayor of Long Beach. Mayor Garcia is focused on making the city of Long Beach a leader in economic development, sustainability, education, and technology. At age 5, he immigrated to the United States from Lima, Peru, and was raised in Southern California. Garcia, a college and university educator, holds an MA from USC, an EDD in higher ed from Cal State Long Beach, where he also earned his BA in communication. They need to know. Currently, he serves as board of the LA Metro Board, Metro Authority, where he's doing a phenomenal job and representing much of Southeast County of Los Angeles. He may not know this, but he is one of my mentors and role models. I've looked up to him and his leadership here in our city. Without further ado, Mayor Robert Garcia.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't have my glasses on, but I know Dan's here somewhere who, there we go. Okay. Thank you for joining us this morning. It's really great. As you guys know, what's happening over at Virgin Orbit is so awesome. And it's so exciting to see so many people working on this incredible vision of space in the future. And also talking to so many folks that live and work in Long Beach, and Dan actually is a Long Beach guy, and it's really great to have him here locally, and also, of course, to be leading this amazing team over at Virgin Orbit. So let's give Dan and his team a round of applause again. Really proud of that. So I know that we have a variety of different folks here. Obviously, we have a lot of our city folks who I'm really happy, obviously, are here and participating and listening to what kind of innovation's about. I know we have some of our community partners that are doing some tech and innovation work in the community, and I know we have a few folks from some other cities that are also here just to kind of absorb what we're doing. So just welcome to everyone. This is the second year that Long Beach has done this Civic Innovation Summit, really kind of focus on what we're doing within Long Beach and as a community. And I want to just start by thanking, obviously, Tracy has done a great job of leading our team. John, before her, Lauren from my team, and the whole innovation just staff. I'm sure Brian is here somewhere. Let's give everybody a round of applause and thank them all for their work. So what I think is really great is just a couple years ago, we weren't talking about innovation in the city of Long Beach, like at all. And I know this because it would be a constant frustration of mine when I was on the city council. And when I first got elected, I guess you could say I was coming at a different age group level than most folks. And so my expectation of what I was expecting from the way I expected I interacted with Amazon, or the way I interacted with my Uber driver, or the way I interacted with other services was very different than obviously the way things were going at the city. And so I'm just really proud of the progress that we have made, and that we're actually talking about technology and innovation, I think, in a very new way. We did a lot of things very fast early on. I've been mayor for about 3 years now, and we immediately made some quick changes. I mean, the first thing we did, obviously, was we kind of restructured our technology department to a department for technology and innovation. We brought in a new commission to support them with their work. I'm sure some of them are here. We partnered within a few months. Mike Bloomberg reached out and said, hey, we're considering Long Beach to be one of our new innovation Bloomberg cities, which was great because that allowed us to bring in a team, an innovation team that's been working on all these great projects. We obviously brought back our economic development department and really structured it around kind of thinking differently and thinking in a way that's reaching out to our university and our community college and other local entrepreneurs and businesses. And so I think what happened pretty quick was we had a little bit of a culture shock and change at the city, where now we're at a point where we can host these gatherings, where we can open up different innovation centers, where we are able to have conversations with the community. You guys just had a conversation, I believe, about innovation and equity. Did that happen, or is that about to happen? It just happened. Okay. Well, I mean, that is so important. Those conversations around kind of what is happening, why the conversation around innovation has got to be a conversation also about equity is so important. But these are all, I feel like we just opened up like the floodgates of this conversation, and everything is happening so fast. The university, our relationships with what's happening with entrepreneurs, what's going on with Long Beach City College, and I'm just really, really, really proud that the city, I used to complain all the time. I'm not sure if like Tom or Pat are here, or I know Tom's going to be here later, but they know I'm a daily complainer about things, in a positive way, of course. But it would bother me that as a avid consumer of information, I mean, I consume a ton of information. I'm constantly consuming information about mostly things that don't matter, but a lot of information about stuff, and I read a lot. And it would bother me that in all of these kind of national conversations and industry articles about cities that are doing innovation work and that are leading in like the tech space and that are kind of pushing the envelope of governance, that we were nowhere to be found in these conversations. We weren't even involved in what these cities were doing. And in this last year, I have seen such a difference. I love that I can pick up the Bloomberg Cities work, or the Governing magazine, or different articles across the country from publications that I respect, and what we're doing is being covered by folks that know what's going on across the country and across the world. And I think that shows that we're making progress. Now, don't get me wrong, this work takes a while, and we have a lot of work to do. And in many ways, we're very behind. And in other ways, we're leading many cities across the country. But there's no question that the dynamic has changed. The conversation is now different. One thing that I say everywhere I go, and people they get just tired of me saying it, but I think it's really important to consistently say over and over again, is how large and important Long Beach is to the American city system and to the country. I repeat this, and some people say, why do you always say that? I'm like, I say it because people don't get it. And, you know, we are, from a population point of view, just larger than most cities that people think of as large. And when I say Atlanta is a big city, and New Orleans is a big city, and St. Louis is a big city, and Pittsburgh is a big city, and Miami's a big city, and we're all like, yeah, those are all big cities. And then when I say Long Beach is more people than all those cities, oftentimes people are like, really? I'm like, yeah. Long Beach is larger than every city that I just mentioned, and we have a incredible, amazing port, and our own municipal airport, and a downtown, as you can see, is like growing by the day, coming out of the ground. And so we have a lot of human capital and social capital in Long Beach, a lot that is untapped. And I think that for so long, we were just like, oh, we're okay being in like LA shadow. And, you know, that's fine. But it's not fine with me. And I know it's not fine with all of you. And so now I feel like things are changing a little bit. And I feel like, you know, the folks that are coming to City Hall to talk about development or investment or growth or a variety of things, we're dealing now with people that are noticing what's happening in Long Beach. I mean, you can see we've got 40 development projects in and around the downtown. You think there's a lot of cranes up right now? Just wait for another year, and you'll see how many cranes are up. And then wait for one more year after that when we're the projects that we're looking at today that are still 2 years away. And so there's excitement, and with all this kind of cool vibe, I've always, like, people say, well, what's like the vibe in Long Beach? And I'm like, well, you know, it is this kind of like, it's this diverse, I think, amazing place of really great people, because it's where I think we're really, really great people with a bunch of different cool vibes, you know. And what I love about Long Beach is that it's this big city, it's on the water, there's a lot of exciting people, there's a lot of families moving in, we've got a great university, but we still maintained, you know, this great diversity, this kind of love of the LGBTQ community. It's still like a little hip hop, which I love. It's got all this stuff, and we should be very, very proud of it. And so now we have an opportunity to really focus and build on bringing in folks that are appreciative and supportive of innovation and technology, and attract more tech companies, and create the infrastructure through fiber and municipal networks that we need to do to take kind of that next step and to grow. And so I'm really excited about the next few years for the city. It's going to be, I think, really, really exciting. I think that as we grow, the one thing I'll say, and this comes back to our equity conversation, is as we push and grow and welcome entrepreneurs and do all this stuff, I have to try always remind myself too, let's always remember that we're moving and growing, but we want to make sure that we're doing this in a way that we're thinking about all the people that are here, you know. And I want us to make sure that we're not creating a city where you know, the cooks that are making our great food at the Haas Hut, you know, can't live here and can't be a part of our growth and community, and don't have access to the technology and the jobs, because they've been a part of our city for a long time, and they make it awesome, which is why we all love to live here. So that's, you know, those are just my thoughts. I want to thank you all again for being here. I think the future is bright. Remember that we're really proud to be part of the Innovate LA. Is it a month now, I think? It's like, or a week? Is it a week or a month? 2 weeks, okay. So the Innovate LA kind of programming that's going on, which this is a part of, we're really excited to be a part of. We're really proud of our Bloomberg team, which they're here today. We're really proud of everyone working hard in our technology and innovation department. Many of you are here today, and in all the city departments that are just opening up and understanding that there has to be change, and that are working hard. And I'll leave you with my favorite kind of a little innovative change that I've left in the city. So far, this is, you know, kind of a joke, but I like it. I have decreased necktie use by at least 75%. I'm counting, by at least 75% in the city. Now, more people are wearing neckties from the city today than normal, but I'm so proud that that in City Hall, I immediately, like over the course of those first few months, just noticed the 75% decrease of people of guys feeling they had to wear ties to work, and so that's my little accomplishment for the workplace. So for those managers that are here still wearing ties, you gotta wear a tie to work, man. It's all good. All right. Thank you guys for having me on. Let's continue on your awesome day. So keep it up. Thank you.
He is awesome. We are so blessed and honored to have a mayor who's willing to push the envelope, think about things differently. Not to mention that he's like this young hipster. I'm older than you. I don't know if he knew that, but I'm older than him, and he's still pushing on us to be better, to do more, to think differently, to make our names a name for ourselves across the country. And that was the perfect opening to share with you about the Long Beach Innovation Team. If our team members can kind of wave and show who you are, we have this amazing Long Beach Innovation Team, funded since 2015, which I shared with you a moment ago. Mayor Garcia really helped attract some of that funding to Long Beach to look at problems differently, to use this user-centered design, really the customer as our point of interest, using data analytics to start to solve problems. So some of the work the I-Team has accomplished, number one, is economic development. John Keisler was a former I-Team director, and he really spearheaded a lot of the conversation, the initiatives that came out of economic development, BizPort, the Blueprint, university partnerships. There's a whole group of initiatives that were launched under his leadership, and in December of last year, he became the Director of Economic Development. This year, the I-Team is focused on public safety, and you're going to see out in the foyer when we go for the break, I really encourage you to stop and look at some of our posters. The I-Team this year, we've been looking at people who've been booked or cited 11 or more times in the last 5 years. These are our repeat offenders in the city that are cycling in and out of jail. And so we have some numbers out there about the types of crime, who these individuals are. So we crunched 5 years worth of data with our data scientists, but we also interviewed the offenders themselves. And we said, hey, you've been booked or cited 11 or more times. How could we create the system to be more responsive to some of your needs? And so we're launching several initiatives. Again, you'll see them out there. The chief of police recently agreed to put a clinician in the jail as a pilot because we found out 70% of our offenders, they're misdemeanor crimes that have to do with quality of life, drunk in public, open container, failure to appear. We know that some of them have mental health issues, that they're homeless, that they're transient. And so we really want to start to triage. We know jail is not the only option for them, but it's the only thing open 24/7. And so we're so excited about some of the things we're launching. So be looking for our press release. I know many of you are already on our email list. If you registered for today's conference, by default, you're going to be on our email list. But you'll be hearing about the initiatives we're launching for the remaining of this year and during the Mayor's State of the City in January, which you all will be invited to as well. He's going to be sharing some of those initiatives and how some of that work will be moving forward. So I like to joke, since John spearheaded economic development and he became the Econ Development Director, I'm spearheading public safety. I'm going to be the next chief of police. Okay, I'm just joking. I'm not. I'm not a police officer by training, but I do love Chief Lona, and I admire all the work he does. But I will continue to lead the work of the innovation team into 2018. And at the Mayor's State of the City, he's going to announce our new initiative for what we're going to be focused on in 2018. I'm so excited. It's like Christmas. You get to unpack the gift. It's just so amazing to work with these strong, dynamic individuals. Lauren Vargas, Alma Castro, my right-hand woman and deputy director, Heather Barker, who you're going to meet in just a minute, our civic innovation lead, Harrison Nguyen, Christina Macias, Stephanie Harper, Caleb Rabinowitz, as well as Alex Chavez, who went on to work for this corporate company. They could pay him way more than government could, but I also want to give him a shout out because he was our data scientist for many years and just this young, smart whippersnapper from Long Beach that went to Cabrillo and then Cal State Long Beach. So Long Beach is such a great place to live, work, and play. We get to innovate in the city where we live, where I'm raising my kids. It's so exciting because as I drive the streets to and from work and to drop my son off at school, I actually get to live and breathe the difference that's happening in our city. So now I would like to bring up Heather Barker. She's going to walk us through this workshop. I know some of you are getting a little anxious, so if you need to get water, coffee, and run to the restroom, if we're all adults, do what you got to do. But I'm excited because she's going to take us through a user-centered design workshop over this next hour, and then we are going to break for lunch, and we'll get to do some networking, and then we'll have the award ceremony here in just a little bit. So I would like to bring up Heather Barker. She is a professor at Cal State Long Beach, Associate Professor of Design. She leads the work in design for the bachelor's program, but she's also spearheading the launch of a master's of design. We have contracted with Heather as a civic innovation designer, and it's been such a pleasure to work with her. She's taught me so much about thinking outside of the box and about creativity. I believe that we all are trained really well in our disciplines: social work, economic development, public administration, data scientists, whatever the area of expertise that you're in, you were trained well to do what you do. Heather helps take that to that next level, and she helps you see that your team members who may see things differently, it's actually an asset, because we can solve problems better together when we have different opinions. So without further ado, I want to bring up Heather Barker, Associate Professor of Design.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I can put it down. Oh, I love this. Hands-free. Thank you very much. There's supposed to be a slide. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. I've been working with the I team. I've worked both with. I worked both with John Keisler, and a lot of my students had the opportunity to work with the innovation team in their user-centered design work, and we developed a lot of work. We've done a lot of trainings with Bloomberg. We've come into this next initiative, and what I can tell you is that within your city, and I think that the mayor mentioned it as well, is you don't realize it, but I can tell you no one is doing this at a higher level anywhere than Long Beach. Right? And we see it when we go and we meet with other innovation cities that are funded by Bloomberg. We sit there and we're leaders in the room. Like, what we're doing is very advanced, and it's deep, and it's a tool to tackle a lot of problems. So I'm going to talk a little bit about design for innovation today. Innovation. When the mayor said that no one was talking about innovation, the problem is that it's not an option not to do innovation, because innovation is just a response to change. You have to be able to manage your institution and your assets, which we'll talk about in a minute, in response to change. So it's a creative process. It has a structure, which is very helpful, and it connects things in new ways. And every time you do that, you're innovating. Design, it's something we call iterative. You need to loop back. You need to revisit the things that you've developed. It's not a linear process. It's research-based, which helps, and also helps with all of our data experts that we've been talking about. Give real validity to the work we do. We refine it. We build it. And today you will build it in our workshop. And then we test it, and we test it with users, and we get feedback, and we improve our products, our services, and our systems by doing that. And so I always like to have a quote here. Paul Rand, anyone know the IBM logo that has an I and then a B, not the letters? The designer of that logo is Paul Rand, and he wrote, to design is much more than simply to assemble, to order, or even to edit. It is to add value and meaning. And that's what you do in your work every day, is add value to things. So we talk about it all the time. There's a big design company called IDEO, which maybe some of you have heard of. Everybody is a designer. Every time you have a strategy about how to achieve something, you're designing it, sometimes whether you know it or intentionally or not. So designing for innovation, many of you have heard of design thinking. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about what that is today because we're on a very tight schedule, but also design doing is important. So thinking about it is not enough. You need to actually make something tangible, visualize something, communicate it in order to actually reach the bar of innovation. So it's action. And so our workshop today, there'll be a lot of action. You'll need both hands, which I'm sorry, because you might have to lay down your phone to work with both hands today, but it'll be all right. It's only 1 hour. And up here you see a few things that innovation and the design process are sort of well known for doing. So develop strategies, right? Sometimes we develop strategies to dive deep. Right now, we're just coming out of a very deep dive in the I-team around public safety. That's something that people don't always associate with innovation, but unless you can go really deep and then deliver something, which gets us to deliver solutions, it's not innovation, it's just an idea. Discover untapped resources and unmet need. So we've talked a lot about this. Talked about there is so much value in the city, and you can feel it, right? You drive through the city and you're like, there's so much value in here, how do we leverage that? This is going to be one of the main focuses of our workshop today. Disruption. Most people think disruption is what you do through design and design thinking. Sometimes you need to do that. But mostly, if you haven't been able to leverage the assets in the best way that you have, then you're throwing away all sorts of value. So understanding the value that you already have within your system is really important. Determining your critical partners. That's something that we discover through our process in the innovation team, and many of you, most of you, are partners through the initiatives of the I-team because we realize we need to understand and leverage your expertise. So look outside of yourself for expertise and to drive change. So, do you want to play a game? Anyone? If you're old enough, you know that do you want to play a game, but you have to be a certain age to know what that is, actually. So the best path to innovation is through an all-hands-on-deck collaborative action. This is important to leverage the collective intelligence. You know more if you can bring people together in a team. Your team is too valuable not to be in the innovation game. So if you're a manager, you're probably, if you're here, in my experience, pretty good at what you do, which means you're a manager in title, but really you're a facilitator, right? Because a manager manages things that are already there, and a facilitator takes things and empowers people to create new things out of them, right? So facilitating is important, and if you have any of your team members that are not in on the innovation game, then you're losing value that you already have internally to your own team. And the last thing, the tools and process of innovation must be accessible to all. So when we talk about equity, we have to make sure, this is a perfect example of what we're going to do today, is that are you doing things in a way that make it inaccessible to people? Are you accidentally, through your innovation, maybe your technologies or your tools, are you accidentally excluding people? Are you mindful of the value that's there that you're passing by? So this is what we're going to focus. So today, the workshop, out of those 7 main things that you can achieve through innovation, we are going to work on discovering untapped resources and unmet need and determine critical partners. Around the topic, are you getting the maximum value out of existing assets and structures? So if you make new connections, it's a synergy and a new value is created, right? So this is what we're going to sort of address, but it's called City of Cards. Someone told me there's a TV show that's like House of, I don't know, but I heard of it. The game, so it's a quick thinking, creative interpreting, and connecting, building game to find value in existing assets. I lived for 10 years in Germany, and that would be one word, but I know it's kind of a wordy thing there. You all have the game board with the pieces on your tables, and underneath it, you have a game plan, which is kind of like a cheat sheet. So for those of you that don't like to be taken through the step-by-step pace, you can deploy now and just start running with this thing, because it's a game, but it's also a race. It's timed, right? Okay, so this is what your cheat sheet looks like. What you want to do is make sure what you're really doing is building a story. So if you don't have a seat and you see someone with like only 3 people at their table or 2, they cannot possibly win. It's impossible to win with only 3 people. Help them. Come to the front, take a seat, especially if you're good at writing, creating a story. Get together, because I know you're all in it to win it. And if you don't have enough people on your team, you get points for every single member that you have. So here's some of my students. Also in the back, if you have questions as we go through this, a student of design, a former student of mine, but also an entrepreneur and innovator is Tomas Castro. Wave your hand, Tomas, if you have questions. He can assist you in the back. I'm going to go through this really quickly. Remember, you need to go fast, which means you need to get out of your head. So we do something called in design a sprint. You do something really fast and you make a ton of mistakes the whole time, but you have to keep going. Some of you do this every day as a normal part of your life, but then you get to revisit it and learn from that first pass. So this is what this is going to be. So you need to work very spontaneously, intuitively. Don't try to solve it in advance or you're going to get really slow and everyone's going to innovate right past you. But in the end, you're going to, big guns just moved to the front of the table. Hello. So what we're going to do, and the reason it's called City of Cards, you have many tools at your hands. One of them is something called House of Cards, but actually it's from 1952, and it was designed by the Eames, which are Michigan, California designers, and it has a lot of, it's a way to have a card game, but also to be able to stack and assemble them. So the first thing you do, you're going to see something that says your character cards. So each of these little packs, don't be shy. The big one with the blue and white, open it up, flip it over, spread them all out, and pick your character. So on this, make some space. You guys know at Thanksgiving when somebody accidentally pulls on the tablecloth and everyone gets really mad? That's going to happen today too. So if you're going to knock things over. So turn them over and pick a character. This is something that should go pretty quickly. I'm going to walk through this and give you a little more detail. After that, you're going to combine characters. So you're going to have a couple of teams. Then you're going to get to the point where you're going to open up, and you might want to move these things to the side because I'll go through this step by step again. Your assets. So these are the number 3 through 6, as you can see. You'll turn those over. Those are Eames House of Cards. They have a lot of very nostalgic, bizarre images on them. This is an exercise in interpretation. Are you able to look at this and say, what could that thing be? For example, there's a bunch of fish in there. And you can say, okay, it's a fish market. I have a fish market. So you're trying to develop a series of assets. They could be connected to the city. They can be completely arbitrary. But you have to interpret it because, again, we're building a narrative and you're looking at doing things in a way that's fresh. So it's very sort of fast. There's some dolls from Japan. What could this be? You know, you can make the associations as you go. So you're going to need like a creative person. You're going to need somebody to document it. So for each step, you have Post-its. You're going to want to write a little story. The next thing that you're going to do after that is sort of cluster them and sort of understand why they're in groups. And then you're going to name those. Then you're going to build with them. So these House of Cards, you can stack them and build something up. And then each team will do that. Then you'll connect them. And as you do that, you win constituents. So there are like really nice little wood guys down there. So completely cute. Or are they women? It's kind of hard to tell. For each connection you make, you gain constituency. And that's how you end up adding your points. And at the end, and this is what, if you know what the last thing you're going to do is, prepare for that now. Pick someone who's going to do the pitch. Because we're going to end up with a 1-minute pitch about this. Tell us the story of what just happened. Okay, so that's the overall. So those of you that are like, I'm going to work through this on my own at my own pace, but I'll go through it step by step. All right, so select your group of facilitators. Who's going to report out? Depending on the size of your team, 2 to 3 people. You guys are going to document what's going on, collect the Post-it notes so you can report out and give us the pitch at the end. Each player should choose an animal character card. All of these animals have some kind of superpower. Anybody got one? Give me an example. What's the special quality of your animal? Bees can be trained to detect explosives, for example. So you need to translate that into what kind of a skill or competency is that? So you could say, okay, my skill or competency is I'm extremely sensitive to dangerous situations and I can save lives. Where's the fire department? All right, so this is part of this interpretive part. What could that be? There's also like a frog, a poisonous frog. We said, I can get great results with little effort. There are many of these. How do you interpret what those assets are? This is the first interpretive part. It should be very fun. Don't get in your head too much. There's not a right answer. You just decide like what kind of a competency or a quality could that be? And then make sure you write it down. So whoever's writing it down, be like, okay, if I see a shark here, has a little description, what is that skill set that you could leverage or translate? And then the other documenting part is the fun point, is for each one of these cards that you can grab and name, you get a point. So somebody keep track of points, because points is how we win. So we have 5 minutes to do that. I need a timekeeper. Let me know if you have a question or ask Tomas. Okay, yeah. Per table. Team per table, yes. You may recruit and scout from other tables if you see certain strengths that are not available on your team. Any questions? Again, it should be fast, intuitive. Don't try to have a strategy in the beginning. You'll solve your problem. You won't know the answer till the end. It's because it's a process. After you've selected your character card and defined your talent based on the strength you have, you should create some teams, as you see in step number 2. So it's possible the game's designed for a 10-person team. It works in smaller teams. You should have at least 2 teams, so you guys should partner up. So for example, if I am a tortoise and a poisonous frog, this is my team. All of a sudden, I have substantial, is it old or heavy? Substantial gravitas, and I can get a lot of impact with very little effort. So now my team is stronger because I've just combined my assets. So pick a team member, and then write down how your assets are now, or your skills are now complementary. So your team is stronger than your superpower as an individual. And again, make sure you're documenting it as you go. Any questions? So this, you will find some parts of this will be easy, playful. Some parts will feel hard, difficult. But remember, it's a game. It should be playful. Don't try to overthink it. Don't get in your head too much. Spontaneous, intuitive. Oh, I see good work on the Post-its up here. Good documentation. Again, if you have any questions, I can come down to the front half. Tomas can talk to the back half. I hear some good things, combining sea and air as strength. So we have is this airport and harbor working together? Anybody pick the snail? Sometimes it's good to be able to go slow. So remember, you get 1 point for each team member that has described their character card and their skill, and 2 points once you have your group defined. If you have a group of 2 people, name your group. Say, we are the... Pardon me? You should have at least 2 groups per table, because you'll get more points if you can combine your work. So have a group of 2 and a group of 3 if you have a small table, or 2 groups of 2. Also, so what you're wanting to do is, okay, understand your strengths and your character. Are we about ready to move on? You have a cheat sheet, so on your own pace, you can go faster or slower. Next. Number 3, you might want to move your character cards aside, pull out your house of cards, and flip them over. These were designed by the Eames. You can get them at the Eames store. I'm sure they will love me advertising for them. You can also get them at the, I think I got my first one at the MoMA. Turn them over. They're going to be very, we just talked about our fiber. This is the opposite of that, right? This is very nostalgic, old images. This is a test to see, can you translate something? Can you see a metaphor? Can you call something by another name? Can you see how it represents something else? So turn them over, and this is a part where you're also, no, turn them over so you can see them. There you go. So with the picture side up, and then if you can grab a Post-it and write what this could be. So, for example, there's one I can see from here. Oh, I can see the fish. Some people have fish. Oftentimes when we do this, people end up calling that a fish market. If you have an ocean and a harbor, that's helpful. Maybe that's not what it is. Maybe it's a grocery store. So these assets, they can be anything. Don't try and categorize it too hard. Try to be as sort of free and playful as you possibly can. You can see some show coins. Maybe you have a bank. The thing that they represent, they don't have to be crazy. You should think of them as fairly conventional things. Shoes. Maybe it's a pedestrian mall. You can see and you can you don't have to name every single one. It's good to name as many as you can. If there's some that you just like, I don't know what this could be, you can push it aside. Some of you will have a card that has a lot of chaos. It's a Chinese pin cushion. What is that? You're like, that's my life every day. Some of you will have another one has a lot of like ordered things. This is sort of like a meticulous structure. Maybe this is the efficiency of using BizPort. No, right now the characters are resting. Only focus on developing your assets. What kind of assets can you build out of what's in front of you? What could those things be? They'll have different, typically as we develop our assets, we identify them as something valuable. They don't have to necessarily be tangible. Usually they are when people do this game. Again, it's really good not to overthink it. Be as fast as you can. No one is going to call you out on having falsely identified your asset. Fast and intuitive is the pace that we want to work with. Don't be afraid to name them. Grab one and name it. Move to the next one. Yes? Yes, so the wild cards are the next phase. So I'm going to go ahead and explain the next phase, but we're going to work on both of these things together. You're going to cluster and organize your assets. At which point you might see, oh, I could really use another thing to make this really work. And that's what your wild cards are for. So you have, they're dry erase cards, but we have Sharpies, which makes it forever. You can use the Sharpies to sort of name an asset that would really help you connect things together or build your cluster. That's what the wild cards are for.
Something. If you're comfortable with that, if you're comfortable with that, you're good with that.
Yeah. Thanks. So the first sort of creative exercise is for you to be able to make a metaphor, to interpret something based on an image, so it's representation. It's also going to help you build your story. And the second one is to start to group them in ways you think these things could possibly be connected somehow. You shouldn't be too intentional or strategic, which is difficult because I know a lot of you work at an intentional strategic level all the time. It should be casual, story-based. I could totally connect the fish market to the bank. Why not? How can you make connections between the things that are there? Again, it should be playful and fun. Maybe it's funny. Some of them may be very funny. That's completely fine. So as you progress, some people are asking, what am I working towards? You're working towards going through the process and then explaining it once you're done, right? So it's a lot of interpretation. And then you're going to say, oh, I clustered these for this reason, which is unconventional, and I don't know why I did that, but it was just intuitive and responsive. So don't try to think it too much up front, because it'll just slow you down. You'll get frustrated. It should be very fun. You should feel fine to make mistakes. We talk often about making mistakes early, or you'll hear the expression fail early. We're not failing, we're learning early so we don't fail later. So it should be very easy. Don't make it harder than it is, and don't get in your head too much. Why not call this thing something? Oh, I see very fast pace here, the clustering. You guys are moving at a quick pace. Remember, again, the end result is you're going to report out and give us a story. So make sure that you're documenting what you're doing as you go. That's easier for the big teams than for the small teams. So some of you are asking about what the character cards do. The character cards are on deck right now waiting. We'll get to what they do in a minute. This is just your competencies. They're going to fill a gap in your narrative as we get through the next phase. Right now you're trying to define assets and cluster your assets in a relational way. I'm going to take back what I said about small teams not doing well. Yes, front and center, front row. Very good. Again, don't overthink it. You should be working very intuitively, not strategically. As you develop your clusters, you might see things that can belong in two clusters. Keep that in mind. If you feel like your cluster makes sense, if it only had this other thing, open up your wildcards and name it if you think you need something that you don't have available to you. Once you have your cluster set up, it's make sure you name the cluster. Like, what does it do? And once you have this phase pretty much set, or you have, if you're fortunate enough to be on a team that has a dedicated facilitator, you can start adding up more points. Give yourself 2 points each for each named asset. So if you're able to name a card, name your asset, give yourself 2 points for each one. If you're able to create a cluster out of those actions, for each cluster you make, give yourself 5 more points. Maybe as you're building your clusters, you end up moving your assets around. That's fine. Again, it should be playful, spontaneous, intuitive. The more assets you have, the better. So if you find something that maybe stumped you, maybe you can by association name it. Okay, I hear there's some questions out there that looks like you guys are trying to win already. So It's a strategic question. Is it better to make a small cluster or a big cluster? Better. There is no better, but you kind of get points for each cluster, although later you get points for each connection. So keep it at the size that makes sense. You will be building something out of those. So I would recommend that you don't have any cluster with less than 3 because you lose your structural integrity. There are architects in the room who can explain that to you. A cluster should not be smaller than 3. But a big cluster is fine, then you get into the high-rise business very quickly. They're going to connect them to make a little house.
And then after they've built the little mini clusters, are they going to try to put together, or?
Yep. They're going to see, so if somebody makes a bank and someone makes a fish market, they're going to move them together. Either they can actually physically move them, or they'll move them together, and they're going to be like, the market is now a center for banking as well as take the next level of thinking about connect things. It's not immediate. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm going to try to continue the greedy question.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks. Okay. Is there demand to move on? We still developing? You can work at, you all have the instruction sheet right with you, so you can go ahead, you can slow down. I'm just here to explain in more detail each step of the process. Still working on developing our assets and clusters. Again, it's a good idea not to have it fewer than 3 in any cluster. So what you're doing is interpreting your assets and opportunities to connect your assets. Okay, I'm going to move on to explain the next step. Work at your own pace. Again, it's a game, but it's also a race. This part is for those of you with good dexterity or mediocre dexterity, or you've done this before because you grew up in a time where there was no iPad. Out of your cluster, you should try to build a house of cards. If it's only 3, it's actually you have 2 cards and you connect a third one. A blank one? Blank is wild. You can make it whatever you want. Write on it with a Sharpie. So if you need to add cards in, you have wild cards there. So try to go dimensional, right? There are slots in the cards so you can connect them and build something dimensional. I think this is very important because we often try to solve problems in 2 dimensions and we live in a 3-dimensional context, which is infinitely richer, more nuanced, and more complicated than a flat solution to a 3D problem. So this is why we go into 3 dimensions. Start to construct your cards. You may end up having to move or remember and take off your Post-its. Keep them connected. So if you have 2 or 3 groups at a table, your group should be the group that you set up with your character and your skill. This is where we reintroduce them. So whatever your character and your superpower is, you're responsible for these clusters, a cluster or 2. Like choose the clusters that your team is responsible for. So building the house of cards. Some of you may have had a card in your house of cards that shows you all the ways you can connect them. We're going for less is more, simple. Some of you will have sort of a leaning, twisting thing. That's okay. Some of you will have a perfect tower. Some of you will have a long stretch. Connect them as you can, and as you see the connections that you had established in your cluster going into 3 dimensions, it takes on a new meaning. Starts to show you more opportunity than you had when they were laying flat. So build these. And as you try to create something, you're going to find that sometimes you need more connections. So if you can make the story for how you can add clusters, go ahead. So for each sort of stable, minimal structure you have, you get a constituent. So you all have constituents embedded in your boards. And for each connection that you have, you get a constituent. If we need someone to go, we have a stash of constituents, but we're maxing out at 10 today. And then the next step is, after you have your clusters, like I said, there's a value in having a cluster because you get a constituent for each cluster, is then to take it to the next level and connect your houses, these little houses of cards, into a city. So you may be able to stack them, or it may only work through adjacency. You move them close to each other. Wildcards, you don't have to use them, but if you say, oh, I could use something, there's an asset I could really use, write what that is on your wildcard and connect them. So then try to connect your houses as best you can. And as you do, things that you had separate in clusters will become, by adjacency, related somehow. If you're able to combine your clusters, give yourself another constituent. This is how you win additional constituency. You can also use a wild card for structural reasons if you find you're missing a base to your house of cards. All right, we're down to 8 minutes, including reporting out, which is more like the 3.5 minute mark. Like I said, it's a game, but it's a race. And so as you're combining this, make sure your facilitators are sort of, you can flip your game plan over and write on the back sort of what's the story, what happened here. As you develop the explanation of your connections, you need to add in how your superpower helps facilitate those connections. So if you are a poisonous frog, how does the fact that you can get great impact with little effort affect building a marketplace on the harbor? All right, 3 minutes. We're getting very vertical over here. This looks good. Tenuous, but big. Again, like at Thanksgiving, do not pull the tablecloth. Right? That's what I meant when I told you before. You will have no friends at your table. Okay, so wrap it up. You want to start putting together your pitch. It'll be 1 minute. It should include what your team's overall powers are, what your assets are, the synergies that you discovered, the actions and the connections that you made, and your total points. All right. We got one complete. Oh, you touched the tablecloth. Careful. All right, we have a completion in the front. All right, put together your story. Get ready, decide who's going to report out. You'll have a minute to tell the story of what happened. Okay. So start wrapping it up to get your story ready. I'm going to tell you a little bit about where this comes from. So this is a game that has been developed out of an all-day workshop that I've done with industry, cities, different places that help them understand how to leverage their existing assets and get the value out of what they have in their own teams that they're not recognizing, whether it's team members' skill set, whether it's connections, things that get looked over in the regular processes. We made a fast game out of it so you could be more intuitive and faster in order to get it down to 1 hour. Okay. Are we ready? Do I have a volunteer to give us your pitch? I'm going to call on someone. All right. Okay, we're ready for the first pitch. I will start over here. Please tell us.
Okay, team one. Immediately we looked at and saw among these cards something that's very near and dear to Long Beach in terms of transportation. So we saw the train card, the vehicle card, and the ship card that represent the multimodal ways to get into and out of the city. And that really is tied into the theme of creating. And we saw and developed a business plan for a textile firm that takes various raw materials and develops lace, other goods that can be sold at a retail level. So that's tied into the customer card, the exchange of money. At the same time, in looking at how this is building across and building up, we have the manufacturer that also supports other businesses in the city, restaurants. So we looked at a number of the cards that we identified as food and the ability to support those other industries and offerings in the city as well. And then lastly, one little tie in there to make sure that we stay healthy, that is something that is near and dear to everybody that lives in the city, and that's also a connection. And then another side piece that's we didn't actually connect, but the way to market and promote this across all sectors of the city. Thank you.
Someone else want to report out? I was watching you guys the whole time, so I'm dying to know.
We saw so many industries and had a hard time narrowing down what we wanted our clusters to be, but we found restaurant, trade and transportation, fishing, food, entertainment, textile, fashion, biotechnology, engineering, construction, and my favorite of all is time travel. But we sort of narrowed our perspectives back and focused on international trade and sort of the idea of Long Beach as a port city. I mean, we're looking out the window, and we're able to sort of say, our focus is our food and fashion exports and imports, and our entertainment and food industries, much like this team, support that. So that was sort of our takeaway. And incorporating our superpowers, is we had our shark and our dragonflies sort of as a symbol for sand, air, and sea, and sort of being able to handle all the different types of aspects of the culture and needs of the community. And also we had our gorilla, which is happiness, so incorporating happiness and health and wellness into our city. And finally, our elephant with a big memory and big ears, and sort of incorporating that into the culture of our community. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent, very good. Someone else want to report out? Okay. Make sure that you're taking pictures of these and sharing them on social media under all those great hashtags that we have here. Here you go.
Thank you. So we might have taken a slightly non-conventional way of approaching this, but when we started to look at the cards, we saw the hallmarks of a small town. So we have some nice, beautiful outdoor space, a modern art museum. Every small town has to have one of those. We have a train station. We have a barber shop, but what we also saw is that the town is struggling, with modernization. So for instance, the barber shop just recently got a hair cutting robot. It put the barber shop, the hair cutter, out of business, so he was retrained by the slug to maintain that robot so he could transition with dignity. The spirits of the town were also kind of getting low, so they took action and they imported a Christmas tree by force from Rockefeller Plaza. That's what the elephant did from the train station. We incorporated our grasshopper and our frogs to be people of action and movement to maintain our beautiful cityscape. And we just tried to incorporate as many props and Legos as possible. Oh, and the shark is also here for protection. Sorry. Thank you. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Very good. Great. Great. Someone else report out? Maybe around this way.
What our team's effort evolved into was, I'll use the analogy of the steps to launch anything. So we started off, it could be something tangible or a service-oriented thing. Whoops, can't bring that show. So the first group is really the design group. Is that right? The design group, where whatever product you want to produce or service you want to sell, you have to come up with a design of it. So we used our creativity in thinking of how to come up with what we thought each of these cards were. So the first step, if we go around the bases, the first step is to design your idea for a product or a service. The second step, thank you. What's your first name? Is the is the production of an idea. Well, after we've got an idea from nothing to something on paper, then the second step is to produce it. Our third step is to protect it, and that is to have best practices and standards in place so that it's something like Mayor Garcia said, that whatever we do is good for all. So this is quality control to protect it. And then our last one, Angelica said that what this is for, this is about presenting something. As in any new idea that you have, when you take it from womb to tomb or cradle to grave or just getting it out into the marketplace, you've got to have an effective way to present it. So she was our chairman of our presentation factory and department. So it was all about really taking an idea and taking it from nothing to something, and in a good way.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, you guys have, I don't know. Anybody want to, we have like competition of the high rises here. You guys want to give us your pitch?
Okay, so this isn't to any particular industry, maybe all industries. So what we did was we combined all of our characters, skills, and strengths, and this is kind of what we came up with to overcome any industry or situation. So we are able to overcome obstacles with or a variety of challenges by land, air, or sea. We can throw an unexpected punch, and we are very flexible. And we can see things in all directions at one time. We can move forwards and backwards swiftly or slowly, and we can also move undetected by blending into the environment. We can jump, fly, or sliver on the ground, and we have our own food supply. We have 4 eyes, so we are goal-driven, and we are creative with our thimble and scissors and yarn. We can also handle any particular situation, physical, mental, or emotionally, because we have our prescription medication. We can see things with a different perspective and allow things to work together, or we can work together or divide and conquer with our kaleidoscope. We have the ability to help things blend together. That was the kaleidoscope. And we can detangle horrible knots with our comb, and we have cash as a backup. Thank you.
Okay, one more. We're over time, so we'll do one more. As the highest tower award goes to.
I think we were really inspired by the Virgin Orbit presentation this morning because some of our powers were scalability, historical knowledge and experience, and adaptability. We took some of our assets, which included information, structure, organization, information about health, culture, diversity, and entrepreneurship, and we created what we call a satellite that we're going to shoot into space with all of this information, democratize it, and make it accessible to the whole world.
Excellent, very good. And this is a gamification, and I won't get into detail what that is, but if you can think about it for a second, you could apply this exact same game to your real departments and your real situations. You need more time, and I do this with teams over the course of a whole day, is to sort of really understand what your strengths are as a team, your individual superpowers as individuals. It might be completely overlooked. The assets that you have, reframe them, think of them in a different way, and innovate on ways to connect things in order to add value and pull the value out of what you have, which is often very difficult to do in a time of change. So thank you very much. Be sure you write this down, tweet it, take pictures of your Post-it notes. You might need it later in your life when you need a fresh idea. Thank you very much.
I told you that she was going to be fabulous. Can't you tell she's a professor? She's amazing. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Yes. Okay, wonderful. It's time for a break. We can take a breather, walk around. So this afternoon, our Civic Innovation Awards will be presented to city departments and employees that have demonstrated their ability to implement creative and innovative solutions for the city's challenges. The 5 award categories are Administration Award, Social Innovation Award, Innovative Partnerships, Livability, and last but not least, the City Manager's Award. Presenting this year's awards is our Assistant City Manager, Tom Modica. Long Beach Assistant City Manager Tom Modica serves in an executive management role to assist the city manager in guiding and facilitating department projects, lead special initiatives, solve problems, and continue the city's innovation and technology efforts, and maintain Long Beach's position as a regional and national leader on municipal issues. Tom is responsible for assisting the city manager in operating the municipal enterprise, including oversight of city departments and leading special projects required to facilitate citywide priorities, programs, and initiatives. He and his family live here in Long Beach. Without further ado, I would like to introduce City Manager Tom Modica.
So Tracy, you either promoted me or demoted me, one of the two, by calling me the city manager. I think you promoted me, but on some days you never know. So first of all, just thank you so much for being here. I know it's hard to take time out of your day to come and do something that is completely different than what you normally do, and really just focus on learning and innovation. And we all have those things burning at home and all of our projects and things that need to get done, but it really is important to take that time. So thank you for being here. So, of course, you're here because City of Long Beach is a national leader in civic, social, and government innovation. And the way we define civic innovation is really looking at new ideas that challenge or revamp existing processes and systems which are aimed at improving the lives of our residents. We get to do that every single day here in the city of Long Beach. We get to make people's lives just a little bit better. And so that's what we do as well through innovation. So the Civic Innovation Summit really highlights current innovation efforts among several different governance sectors. And our purpose of this award ceremony is to really take that time to recognize civic-based innovation projects that are taking place in our region. So the first award category is the Administration Award. This category is based on an innovative approach to solve a significant administrative challenge. And so the nominees for this category were the Public Affairs team for the Go Long Beach newsletter, the Human Resources and Civil Service Departments for online requisition system called NeoGov, and the Parks and Rec and Marine for power pedestal lighting. And the award goes to, do we have a drum roll? Nice, drum roll. Thank you. Glendy Martinez, Personnel Analyst in the Human Resources Department, and Caprice McDonald, Special Projects Officer in the Civil Service Department for NeoGov.
Over 5,000 people work for the City of Long Beach, and to make sure each and every position, whether it's vacant, needs to be updated, or is brand new, requires a comprehensive requisition process that includes getting between 9 to 13 different approvals from different people and departments before it is even advertised. Now what was once a cumbersome paper process has been automated.
When people talk about the hiring with the city, they think it's such a long and cumbersome process. Any part of the process, if you can shave off some time, is going to make a huge difference and increase our efficiency.
With our previous method of getting the requisition approved, we were looking at a little bit over 2 weeks of an approval process. With the new process, it's about 2 to 4 days.
While Civil Service had been using a software program called NeoGov for the hiring of classified positions, Human Resources and the rest of the city were not. Working together, the Civil Service and Human Resource team customized the software so it can meet everyone's needs.
The person that makes the request can now easily and visibly track their requisition. They can see in real time instead of having to look at a log online that has to be manually updated.
Besides saving time and eliminating paper, it also makes the process so much easier and more transparent for the person who creates the request in the first place, as the software automatically updates at what stage the requisition is and what steps still need to be completed.
With the city using the electronic requisition within NeoGov, we now have the complete cycle in one location.
Automation is a great thing. We're moving into a new city hall in 2019. Our goal is to reduce paper, and this is getting us to beat that goal.
Congrats. So we're going to welcome up Glendy and Caprice, and I do want to say this has really been a quantum leap forward for the city of Long Beach. This has been something I have heard complaints about and complaints about and complaints about and complaints about, and this is the team that really put in the solution. So please give them a round of applause, and we'll hand them their award. Next up is our Social Innovation Award. Selections for this award were recognized by a program, process, or partnership that has improved the way that local government delivers public services. The two nominees for this category were Public Works Environmental Bureau for the Long Beach Clean Team and the Long Beach Fire Department Junior Lifeguard Program. So the award winners are, drum roll. Thank you. Deco Malconian, Environmental Services Bureau, and Kenneth Roberts, Facility Maintenance Superintendent for the Environmental Services Bureau for the Clean Long Beach Team.
Each year, the residents and businesses in Long Beach throw away approximately 368,000 tons of residential, commercial, and industrial waste. That's 1,494 pounds for each man, woman, and child in Long Beach. But even though this fleet is hard at work year-round, there is still more trash that needs to be picked up to keep all our neighborhoods litter-free.
We're trying to coordinate the different departments and the different bureaus responsible for these efforts, put them together at the same time and clean everything up at once. So you really have a neighborhood that gets the reward of seeing everything being nice and clean and pleasing all at the same time.
While getting rid of the big stuff that gets tossed into alleys, homeless encampments, and other less frequently used sites is their primary mission, the Clean Team's goal is much larger.
We're trying to change the way of people's thinking is. But if we can become proactive and get the public and the businesses and the residents to understand that they can stop things from the start of the problem so that we'll have fewer problems down the road.
We're getting a lot of feedback from our residents where they feel that it is being a positive effect on our city.
Working in partnership with other departments and community groups, the Clean Team is taking a new approach to keeping our city beautiful.
Having a nice city and just having the ability to be a part of it has just been exceptional. Long Beach has so much to offer, and it's just been a beautiful city to be a part of.
Welcome up, Deco and Ken. Can't say enough about this team. Keeping our city clean is really a core service of local government, but what's really innovative here is the way that they're doing that. This is a huge priority for our mayor and city council, and these guys and their entire team are looking at data, they're looking at different approaches, they're looking at social engineering, social experiments, and really looking at trying to also change behavior so that people aren't just continue to throw it down on the ground knowing that these guys will clean it up. So hopefully our goal out of this is that they have less work to do, not more. We really measure success by they shouldn't have to pick up anything because we already have a clean city. So that's the goal. So congrats again. All right, so our next award is the Strategic Partnerships Award. This category is based on an innovative partnership that leverages resources in a unique and creative way to open the doors to new possibilities. The two nominees for this category were the Water Department for the Certified Blue Restaurants program in partnership with Health Department and Office of Sustainability, and the Health and Human Services Department Office of Equity for My Brother's Keeper partnership. And the award goes to Glenda, drum roll, thank you. Jennifer Vasquez, Certified Blue Restaurant Program Manager, Long Beach Water Department.
Water is used for virtually everything in a restaurant: cooking, dishwashing, cleaning, you name it. And while there may be a huge variation in the amount of water that different restaurants use, every restaurant manager or owner will tell you they use a lot of water. But now in Long Beach, the Water Department has a new program to help stem that flow.
Certified Blue program is offering recognition for Long Beach restaurants that are water efficient. So we go to a lot of Long Beach restaurants and recognize them for the water efficient devices that they have.
Once enrolled, a restaurant receives a no-cost on-site efficiency survey to identify savings, is provided free water-efficient devices, and assessed for possible rebates for larger equipment like ice machines and dishwashers.
The most innovative thing about this program is that it combines all the resources within the community in such an efficient way.
Once certified blue, restaurants are recognized and receive a branded brag kit to share the good news with all their customers.
As a business owner, they save water and they save money, but also are recognized through social media and various platforms.
These simple changes can result in savings on the order of 25 to 30%. Recently started, the Certified Blue Restaurant program is off to a great start.
We want to expand as much as we can to reach 100 restaurants by next year, and so we want to keep this program going.
So our water department is such a leader in the industry, in California and in the nation. They have such a great reputation, and conservation is something they've been doing forever, and they keep finding more and more ways to do it. I think we use the same amount of water today that we did in 1970, despite having 1950? Wow, even better, Chris. Even 1950, despite having 100,000 people more, or whatever that number is. So actually, I'd like to welcome up Chris Gardner as well, the Water Department General Manager, to help give this award. Thank you very much. So the next award is the Livability Award. And the criteria for this category is based on the development of an innovative approach to make Long Beach a more livable city. We are one of the most livable cities out there. We really have a lot of cool stuff that you don't see in a lot of other cities. City of Long Beach staff who submitted nominations gave overwhelming support to really one popular event here in Long Beach that is really making a name for itself. It increases bikeability, walkability, community, and business relations. So the award for this category goes to, thank you, Tasha Day and the Beach Streets team. So for Long Beach Beach Streets. So that's special events and filming, Long Beach Fire Department, Long Beach Police Department, Long Beach Public Works Department.
Whether you're a bike rider, rollerblader, walker, or even a local business owner, there is something for everyone at the incredibly popular Beach Street events that Long Beach has been hosting for the past 2 years. But closing down roads and preparing for events like this takes a well-coordinated team.
Beach Streets, I think that people don't realize what actually goes into the event and the amount of planning. It's usually 6 to 8 months in advance of planning, with several city departments and outside contractors involved, and the undertaking of closing the actual street.
While other cities also host open street events, the ones here in Long Beach attract a much larger crowd. By making sure everything is free and that there is plenty of entertainment, food, and fun to go around, nearly 70,000 hit the road for this great community event.
I think it's all about livability. So Beach Streets is a livability event where we bring the community together, and it was a way to bring everyone out and meet your neighbor, meet your stakeholder. We've had residents tell us that they didn't know each other prior to a Beach Streets, and now they have neighborhood gatherings every weekend. We've had residents tell us that they didn't even know a shop existed in their area until we did a Beach Streets, and now they go to that shop or restaurant every weekend.
Beach Streets Uptown Long Beach this past October was the 5th open street event. Again, the community came out in full force.
For my staff in my office and the rest of the city and departments involved, I think it's a way that we give back to our community, and it's the best thing and the best feeling that any of us could have.
So Beach Streets started in back in Columbia, actually, back in the 1990s, as this idea of trying to get people out onto the roads. And so that's kind of migrated over here to the States. And the way that this is really innovative is, in addition to just doing an open streets, they really made it an experience. So when you come to a Long Beach event, it's all about the experience. You get to bike, you get to ride, but that's not all you can do. And so can't thank enough of this team for everything that they do. And 70,000 people are showing up at these events, which is really impressive in a city of 500,000 people. So congrats to the team. All right, and now our last award. Last but not least, we have the City Manager's Award. And this award goes to the department, individual, or program that fundamentally shifts the approach of service delivery and improves access to services. So we had 2 nominees for this category this year. One of them was Economic Development Department for the Economic Development Blueprint, and Financial Management Fleet Services Bureau for our alternate fuel program. And so the award for this category goes to Dan Berlenbach, Bureau Manager, Oliver Cruz, Fuel Operations Program Officer, and Jacqueline Denmark for our Fleet Services Bureau.
Fleet Services is responsible for maintaining and fueling over 2,000 vehicles operated by the City of Long Beach. Since 2003, when they were the first city in the United States to use liquefied natural gas, or LNG, for street sweepers, they have focused on researching, adopting, and using alternative and renewable fuels to become the greenest and most fuel-efficient fleet in the nation.
Considering how high the asthma rates are within the city, we want to do everything we can to be green and clean.
Making sure that the city's vehicles emit the minimum possible is the best thing for the health of everyone that lives and works in Long Beach.
While sustainability has been a priority for the Bureau for over 40 years, 2017 marked several key milestones.
This year has been really great for us because we unveiled the first municipal refuse truck in the United States to run the Cummins ISLG Near Zero engine. These trucks are just as clean or even cleaner than fully electric trucks that run off the grid.
So we're standing right in front of our brand new state-of-the-art CNG station. It provides fuel to our refuse trucks and sweepers, and when you burn this methane as a transportation fuel such as RNG, the carbon emissions are 21 times less potent than if it were released into the environment normally.
This year, because of their sustainability efforts, they were one of only 39 cities nationwide to achieve a Tier 4 ranking by the NAFA Sustainable Fleet Accreditation Program.
So we're really excited to be recognized for the sustainability of the city's fleet. Our staff has put a lot of work into making sure that the city's fleet, as it operates throughout Long Beach, places the minimum impact on the environment.
And were selected as one of the top 10 leading fleets in the U.S. under the Government Fleet Magazine Leading Fleets program.
Anything that our fleet can do to improve quality of life in our community, we are always happy to do that.
So congrats, team. While this award really is about sustainability, this team has really revolutionized fleet services in the last couple years. They are using tremendous amounts of technology that's being now installed onto our vehicles so that we can monitor data. We can even tell when people are doing hard brakes when they shouldn't be, and talking to them about that later to make sure that they're driving safely. They're monitoring data on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and also making sure that we're buying all of our fleets at the right time and that we're selling them at the right time so that we can actually make money rather than just hold on to it for a long period of time. So just can't thank the team enough for really thinking creatively. This Fleet Services Bureau is much different than it was 5 years ago. So once again, thank you for being here. Thank you for helping to honor city employees who are really working hard, trying to do the best that they very well can do, and just keep looking at ways that we can be innovative as a local government. And I encourage all of you to keep it up, and thank you for being here to help expand your own knowledge of what your partners are doing, because that's really where innovation and learning comes from. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Tracy.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. So I'm going to embarrass a few people. If I can ask the innovation team to make their way up here, as well as the management assistants, I want to make sure that we recognize all the hard work of the team who planned today's event, from the food to the decor to getting the Legos and ordering the supplies. Innovation team and management assistants, if you can make your way up here to my right. Move quickly. They're going slow because they're embarrassed. Come on up here. So I introduced our I-team earlier, but now I would like to also introduce our management assistants. Come on over to my right. We have Fiona Cabana, Alejandro Lopez Sanchez, Christian Cambridge, and Rebecca Kuma. The City of Long Beach Management Assistant Program offers an intense and fulfilling one-year apprenticeship filled with challenge, excitement, and tremendous opportunities for career and personal growth, not to mention a host of work-life benefits that are hard to match. Our management assistants applied for this position, and they're here with us for a full year, and I'm going to make a shameless plug. The City of Long Beach is currently accepting applications for the 2018-2019 Management Assistant Program. Applications are due Monday, January 15th. If you're interested, please go on longbeach.gov and look at our Management Assistant Program, or if you know some up-and-coming young professionals that would like to take a stab at working the government in a new and innovative way, please encourage them to apply. Again, I would like to thank our innovation team and our management assistants for all of your hard work. Without the hard work that you've put in these last couple months, today's event would not be possible. So thank you. Wonderful. And we also want to thank our sponsors again. We thank you for being here with us and sponsoring this event. It's been wonderful to collaborate with all of you today. That concludes our event. So in closing, there is parking validation on your way out. Remember, we have the I-Team ice cream bars. Take as many as you'd like. And we have some food, extra food if you want to take seconds to go. Thank you so much for joining our Civic Innovation Summit, and we look forward to seeing you in 2018.